Hey, and welcome back to Game Talk. I'm your host, Sam and Mion. Today I'm joined by Connor
Hey guys.
and Mike.
Hello.
And in the past, we've gone through the libraries of a few consoles, right? We ranked our favorite GameCube games. We ranked our favorite PS3 games. This week, I think we decided we'd do something a little different, but kind of in that same vein. We were thinking about making a tier list of all of the major consoles that we're familiar with. So actually, yeah, Connor, you had this idea, and I think you kind of aped it off of Donkey's latest video.
Yeah, so to be clear, I didn't watch that video. I just saw that Donkey was doing a console tier list.
It's a very funny video.
Yeah, and I thought it would be funny to do our own. So,
All right, yeah, so maybe we should just get started. I think so. Just for the sake of everyone, I'm not gonna try and talk about the first and second generation consoles because I literally know next to nothing about, like an Atari 2600.
all right,
So-
but I'm gonna tell you, Pong is really good. Pitfall, it's pretty all right. Wasn't out at the time, but Halo 2600, pretty good. That's more.
All right. Okay. And so before we start proper, I'm just gonna get this out of the way. We're gonna talk through, deliberate the pros and cons of each one. At the end, rank them all in a tiered list, anywhere from S, A, B, C, D, E, or F.
Okay,
Okay,
so just to
that's
be
fine.
clear, are we ranking it when we're done talking about that individual console, or are we gonna rank them all at the end?
I was thinking about ranking them all at the end, but what do you guys think?
I think I want to have the deliberation fresh in my mind when I rank them.
Okay. Okay. So we can deliberate, rank, and then proceed. Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, the good
Okay.
old, well, not technically first of all, third generation, the first console we're going to consider is the NES or Nintendo Entertainment System.
I mean, this is one of my favorite consoles. It's probably I have an NES and an SNES, but I've definitely played
So do you have the
it-
classics or do you actually have the old console?
I got the classic first, but then I decided to go back and buy an actual NES.
Really?
Yeah, the first time I actually played an NES that I remember was actually in college. My roommate Josh had one, and I remember like I had grown up on Angry Video Game Nerd, and I was just kind of convinced that there weren't good games before the Super Nintendo. And me and Josh sat down and we played Super Mario Bros. 3 one day, and I was like, "Holy crap! Like this thing's incredible! Like
Yeah.
there's like an art to the simplicity of these games, and they're so good." And now like Castlevania and Castlevania 3 are two of my all-time favorite games. I've played those so many times. I have never beaten either of them. I've gotten to Dracula and Castlevania 1 a bunch, but I haven't beaten it yet.
Yeah, so my relationship with the NES is interesting, right? Like I've said many times on the show that N64 was my first console. So I have experienced NES through like virtual consoles. And what I will say is like I definitely don't have the same experience you do or as, someone who grew up with it, but I definitely can appreciate how game makers at that time were able to do so much with so little, right? Like Mario is just run and jump and they were able to crank out like a beautiful work of level design that's still hailed today as like one of
Oh
the
yeah, I mean,
all-time
how many
greats,
1-1 analysis videos are there?
Yeah. So, yeah, and it's just sort of I guess kicking off the whole storied history of Nintendo's creativity in this industry with this console.
Yeah, I will say cons though, because it's not perfect.
The controller kind of sucks in my opinion.
Yeah, the controller is.
Depends. If you get the
Weak.
Dogbone controller, it's pretty good. The Dogbone controller is
So I
shaped
don't know
more.
what that is. But like the
It-
original controller is very angular and
Yeah,
rectangular.
the original controller is literally just a rectangle, and it
Yeah.
is not very fun to hold for very long. In its defense, Nintendo didn't anticipate anybody playing their games for very long back then. Games were like an hour or two long, tops.
Right, and back then, like saving wasn't a thing, and that was to
Yeah, I
artificially
think Legend of
lengthen
Zelda
the
was the
length.
first game with a save battery. Like,
Yeah.
so you had all that, but they did later release the top loader NES and the Dogbone controller, which is just it's basically the SNES shape, but the NES layout, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I don't that's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen this controller, but I believe you.
I've held one. They're all right. I actually, just from I'm nostalgic for things I didn't experience sometimes, and from a nostalgia perspective,
Yeah.
I like the original controller more. The other con The rate of failure on the NES is actually weirdly high for Nintendo because
Really?
yeah,
Well,
so they made
this was their first console, so
Okay, so that's the thing. The original Famicom has a way lower failure rate than the NES because in America they didn't want it to look like a toy. So they had that weird like you open the front and you slide the game in and lock it in place
Oh, I
to
hated
make
that.
it. They wanted it to be more like a VCR. And
okay, so
what that
it
does, it's not self-cleaning. Like most top-loading consoles are self-cleaning. The NES is not, and so it gets dirty really easily, and also like the mechanical parts of that whole experience fail really easy. I had to replace them in
that's
mine.
interesting. So just ignorant question here. Famicom and NES are the same thing, right?
They are
Just
the
one
same
was in
thing.
Japan, one was in the States.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
They look a little different. Like the Famicom does not look like the NES in the States, but yeah, fundamentally they're the same thing.
Yeah, the Famicom like had the controllers like naturally attached to it, and I think the cords were smaller and stuff. The Famicom looks cooler in my opinion, but that's fine.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of it. It looks kind of like the Canadian flag.
Yeah. And it also just it had a lot of shovelware on it. The NES, like,
Did it really?
oh my God,
That's
I think
fascinating.
the NES probably had the most games of like any console. Like it had so many. Like
Right. I mean,
I'm
like I'm not too familiar with, the ins and outs of the industry back then, but I imagine like any third parties that existed,
yeah.
everyone was putting their games on this thing, right? Like
Yeah,
this
because the
was
Master
the
System
console.
wasn't really in America. Like this was the only skin in the game really in the US at the time. Like the NES
Yeah.
was it. The video game crash had happened. The
You had an
Master
Atari
System.
in this generation.
Atari
Yeah,
2600
yeah.
was
But
You had
Atari
the
had like just gone
7800.
Oh,
Atari
okay,
had just
okay.
gone bankrupt, like I think, from the video game crash.
No, the Atari was still in the game until the Jaguar, which was
Okay.
well
Sorry.
into, I believe, the fifth. Hold on. Let me.
Yeah, Atari 7800 was a thing during
Yeah.
this time period. So just, I have this nifty graphic pulled up. Third generation went from 1983 to 1990 according to this thing.
But Atari made games for the NES, I think.
But anyway,
I-
yeah.
They might have.
So
Anyway, it doesn't
huge
really
volume
matter.
of
We're not
games on
going to talk
NES.
about Atari
Yeah.
here, but really the only meaningful skin in the game was Nintendo at the time. Like
So,
it outsold its contemporaries
yeah.
by so much they don't matter.
I mean, by so much they became a pillar of the industry, really.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, I mean the NES sold so well that Nintendo is still relevant today despite never ever winning another console generation.
yeah. Well, we
I don't think so.
really? Huh. Okay.
Maybe. But I'm pretty sure
We
the PS3
outsold we outsold everything, I
Did
believe.
it?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we outsold PS3 and 360.
I'll check.
Every
I'll
household
check when
had
we
a
get
Wii.
to it.
Yeah. So anyway, so where do we want to rank the NES? I mean, I think there's only one spot, right?
Oh, yeah, it's S tier. I mean, it started the industry. It
Yeah.
I mean, in my mind, it was when the industry really started. It was when games really started getting good.
Yeah, and I'm sure if we have older listeners that they're probably yelling at us right now, but
Yeah, well,
I mean, definitely from my
I think even they
perspective.
would like sort of agree. Like that's when you got your Marios, your Zeldas, your like it's just when things really got good was the NES.
Yeah.
I mean, there were games that were fun to play before that, but like nobody was really attempting a story. Nobody was really. It was all like home arcade experiences, which are fine. I like
Right.
I like arcade games, but I gotta put the NES in S tier. I think anything else would be blasphemous.
Yeah.
I agree. And so for the interest of time, because there's a lot of consoles, let's move on to the next console.
Yeah.
Do we
Sega
want to
Master
talk
System.
about Sega Master System?
So I've not had a Sega Master System, so this one's a little harder to talk about. They weren't particularly popular in the States, as far as I know. But in a lot of other countries, like I've heard a lot about the Master System in Brazil, and like because the Master System was prevalent in a lot of other countries, like the Master System got Sonic 1 and 2. Like this thing got, and I think it's super interesting because the Master System is 8-bit, so it got versions of games that were really interesting. It also had the Master System had these really cool game cases that were like, it was like on a grid, and you would have like one sprite from the game on this grid, like on this white, like grid paper, graph paper looking box, and that was just how you made a Master System box, and that's what they all look like, and I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think a couple points, right? Like first point, Sonic, right? Like we know Sonic is the king of memes today, but back then he was seen as like the mascot of the industry next to Mario, right? Like
Yeah,
back
and
then,
notably, Sonic did not come to the Master System before the Genesis. He came to both at the same time.
oh, interesting. I did not know that.
Yes. So, if you've played the Game Gear version of Sonic the Hedgehog, you've played something very similar to the Master System version. But the fact that it exists, I think, is extremely interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it's got this huge cultural presence around the world. A lot of people remember it very fondly. I don't think I would ever pick one up. I'm not much of a Sega guy, if I'm being
Yeah, I mean,
honest.
like I think, just to make an analogy to today, I feel like a Nintendo slash Sega back then was what Sony and Microsoft kind of are now, right? Like the two
Yeah.
major console
Yeah, two
manufacturers.
titans. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although
So
I don't think Sega was really a titan yet in the days of the Master System. It was
yeah, I think Genesis is more where that
it was
happened,
Master
right?
System into Genesis, and like some places were still stuck with a Master System. But notably, they still got like these games weren't bad. They were just not 16-bit,
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's got its cons. I don't think the Master System quite lives up to the NES for me. Anybody else got any arguments for or against it?
No,
Yeah.
I didn't even know what the Master System was until I like had to research it.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I'll just defer to your opinion on this because Sega consoles as a whole, I really don't have any experience with. Like, I always knew they were there. It's just I was always a Nintendo guy growing up and then became a PlayStation guy and just
Well,
never had the opportunity to give Sega a fair shake.
yeah, I've not the only Sega console I've owned is a Dreamcast, but I've done like I watch a lot of retro YouTube and stuff, and I gotta say, I mean, Master System, it's not the NES, and so it barely slides into this spot, I think. But I've also got to put it S tier, I think.
Yeah.
You gotta respect the legacy. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, I mean, Sonic, I mean, you've seen Sonic, and like putting Sonic next to like Super Mario Bros. 3, and like the idea that they got that Sonic game down to run on an 8-bit console is just incredible. And you got to give them a lot of points for that.
Can't disagree with that. Are we ready
Yep.
to move on to the fourth generation of consoles?
I'm ready.
So,
Or wait, where's the
Pull up.
Game Boy land? Is that fourth gen?
fourth gen, yeah.
Okay.
Fourth generation, 1987 to 1995, starting with the Super Nintendo.
Oh yeah.
I mean, what do you even say about the Super Nintendo?
yeah,
it has a
what-
Link to the Past. It's got Super Mario World. I mean,
Well, the interesting thing to me about the Super Nintendo is the fact that it has so many games that I'm just now discovering that still completely 100% hold my attention and still are timeless. Like I feel like a lot of the games on this console could be made today and be hailed
I mean,
as
Street Fighter
masterpieces.
2 on the SNES. Chef's kiss. Like,
No, well, I'm just thinking in terms of Zelda, like
oh
we've
yeah,
got Link's Awakening, we've got A Link to the Past, we've got
Link's Awakening was Game Boy.
was it really? I
Yeah,
didn't know
Link's
that.
Awakening
Okay.
was 8-bit. It was on the Game Boy.
Well, still A Link to the Past. I mean,
Well, Link to the Past is the only Zelda game on SNES, but yeah,
Yeah.
it I mean, it carries its weight,
yeah.
And Super
think
Mario
this is
World,
where we
Donkey
saw-
Kong Country 1 and 2.
Mario Kart as well, right?
Oh my God, yeah, Mode 7 games alone. Like this was kind of console's first foray into meaningful 3D. The SNES got a Doom port. It's bad. It's bad. It runs really bad, but I mean, it's there. It got this. It's on like a bright red cartridge. I have a copy of it. It's so cool. But it's like, it's super like letterboxed and stuff to get it to run at a playable frame rate, and playable is a strong
Like
term.
15 FPS.
Yeah, it's really low. At 15, I think is right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know, like the I feel like this one's just obvious. There's like no arguing that it
No,
isn't
I mean,
S
just
tier. You know, like
yeah, like even looking away, like obviously the SNES is like a huge jump in technology and all, but I mean, what you're really looking at is game design, and like I think the two games you look at that make the SNES like a pillar here are Super Metroid and The
yeah,
Legend of
Super
Zelda.
Metroid too. Like
Yeah, The
there's
Legend of
so
Zelda: Link to the
many
Past. Like
games.
those alone, I'll just say it now. Like you could even if no other games came out on that console, it'd be S tier for those
Yeah,
two.
those are two of the best games, two of the best and most influential games ever made.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean, people are still talking about Super Metroid all the time, and I would
I mean,
argue
Super
that
Metroid birthed the genre, you know,
yeah,
like
and
you
I would
got
say that
Metroidvanias.
very few games in that genre have been as good as Super Metroid. I would say maybe only Hollow Knight.
I was thinking Hollow Knight, yeah.
Yeah, I think Hollow Knight is the only game that I would
Which
even
which
like
is
put in
just
the
a
arena.
testament. I think that's just a testament to how good Super Metroid is and how good Hollow Knight is, that it took, like
Yeah,
20 years for a
yeah.
competitor to
I mean,
emerge,
there are good Metroidvanias out there. It's just they're
Hollow
not
Knight's in a
Super
class of
Metroid.
its own, though, I
Yeah.
think. But yeah, I think, I mean, unless there's any more to say, Super Nintendo, obvious S tier here.
Yeah, obvious S tier.
So moving on to the Genesis, I think
Yes, Sega Genesis.
I didn't know more.
God,
I had
that
some
was a
friends
good
that had a
console.
Genesis, and Genesis had some cool stuff. So notably, the Genesis came before the SNES. Sega was first to the 16-bit party. Not Sonic the Hedgehog was not up against Super Mario World. Sonic the Hedgehog was up against Super Mario Bros. 3, if I remember right. And that's kind of crazy. Like, they need.
Super Mario World was also SNES, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Super Mario World was
Yeah,
SNES.
that console
Uh,
is so good.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
But the Genesis, I mean, the Genesis had. What makes the Genesis kind of remarkable is that it had weirdly good third-party games. Like,
Yeah,
pretty sure people really liked the Michael Jackson game on the Genesis.
Genesis did what Nintendo don't. Like,
Yeah.
I hate.
I mean,
Yeah,
the,
that-
the
that
blast
commercial
processing
is
was
still-
nonsense and everything, but like, I mean, they're not as good as Mario in my book. I still would pick Mario 3 over any Sonic game, except maybe Mania. But like, pick up Sonic 2 and 3 today and try to tell me that like they're not amazing. They're just good games. Like
Yeah.
Sonic 1, I have beef with, but I mean, they were still stretching their legs. We'll ignore Sonic 1.
Sonic one was good.
I mean, the fact and like I'm gonna give Sega some points here just for how playful they were with like the lock-on technology, the way that you could play as Knuckles in Sonic 2 using the Sonic and Knuckles cartridge. Like that wasn't originally in Sonic 2. Like that's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's nifty. They did a lot of gimmicks to like separate themselves from Nintendo, who was very straight across the board with how their console worked.
Right. And they were willing to do stuff that Nintendo wasn't like let Mortal Kombat have the blood code or whatever,
Or let's stick a CD drive on this thing.
Oh my God, yeah, the Sega CD. Yeah, I'm actually, yeah, I'll give them points for ingenuity, but I gotta dock points for the Sega CD and the 32X and like all that crap.
They really put a lot to keep that Genesis viable.
Yeah, they kept it, which is funny because like when the Genesis started out, they were bragging about how it was more powerful than Nintendo's offering, but then instead of releasing a more powerful console, they were like trying to, suck the marrow out of the Genesis. But like looking at the iconic games that started on Genesis, you've got like, Sonic the Hedgehog alone, his name it's been through the mud, but everybody knows it. You got Mortal Kombat was way bigger on Genesis. I'm pretty sure the Genesis won that generation. I'm pretty sure it beat the SNES.
Yeah,
Did it really?
I think it did.
Yeah. Yeah, they were the first people to ever like put the fear of God in Nintendo. The Genesis was huge.
Yeah.
So Sonic the Hedgehog alone, I mean it's S tier. It's plain and simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to have the like one out of the or a couple of the handful of actually good Sonic games,
Yeah, and they were like back to back too. Like Sonic CD was on there as well on the Sega CD, and like it's not as good as 2 and 3, but it's pretty good. It's a good game. People like to act. It was one of those games that people like to act was way better than it was because nobody had played it because nobody had a Sega CD. So they like that. Oh, you missed out. You didn't get to play the good one. Like,
Yeah, again, like not
good,
really
though.
familiar with Sega consoles, so I will defer to you guys on this one. But
yeah. Well, fortunately, we have a couple more Sega consoles to get through, huh?
yeah, we do.
2 more, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the last time it's just Nintendo and Sega, though, I think.
Yes, you're right.
So yeah, I mean, I'm putting it S tier.
Okay. I won't argue that because I lack the facts to dispute it.
Did we have some other consoles in this generation? Yes.
Yes,
Game Boy.
Like, no, there was the TurboGrafx and the Neo Geo.
Yeah, but
I can't.
I don't
speak to
know
their quality
next to
at all.
anything about
Yeah,
those.
those are
I mean, I'll say the
fairly-
TurboGrafx 16 was cool, but I haven't ever held one.
Notably, there was also the CDI.
Yeah,
I think was in this generation.
the CDI was bad.
But it gave us the
So-
best memes, I guess.
Yeah,
Game Boy though.
Game Boy. I mean, Game Boy. I'm not even going to talk about it. The Game Boy's an S tier for me. Like, just
100%.
because. I mean, it had Pokemon Red and Blue. Like, it had
Yeah.
Super Mario Land 2, which is probably still the most creative 2D Mario game. It had.
I mean, just echoing your thoughts from the Super Nintendo, if the Game Boy had nothing but Pokemon Red and Blue, it would still be S tier, I think, just because
Yeah.
of the vast impact Pokemon's had on everything, you know?
I agree. And like Metroid 2, it was compromised, but I mean, Metroid 2 came before Super Metroid. You know, it inspired the tone for sure. It had a darker tone than the original.
And we finally bring up Link's Awakening as well, which is a fantastic game.
Oh my God, Link's Awakening. Link's Awakening was originally a port of
Right, yeah.
A Link to the Past onto the Game Boy, and eventually they just decided to get weird with it, and thank goodness they did because that game is insane.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
It's so good. I say that having not finished it, but it is extremely good.
I finished the Switch remake, which for all intents and purposes is just like a shiny coat of paint on the game, right? And
Although
it's
I gotta say, yeah, that game has been
still holds up.
re-released so many times, like almost a Skyrim number of times. Like,
yeah,
it was on the Game Boy, and then I think it was released 3 times on the Game Boy. I might
it
be
got
wrong
2
about that.
releases. It got,
I know it was Link's Awakening and Link's Awakening DX,
Yeah.
but I thought it got a 3rd release too.
I think DX was the final release because it was on the Game Boy Color. Because
Okay.
it was released right up around that point where the Game Boy Color came out.
Right, and so the original game supported color a little bit. DX supported color fully and added the color dungeon because Nintendo did not like re-releasing a game without having massive additions to it for the Game Boy Color. Because in Nintendo's mind, the Game Boy and Game Boy Color are the same console. Those are not separate things, and I want to
Right.
point that out for this ranking too. Because I think that's how, if that's how Nintendo sees it, that's how we have to grade it.
yeah. I mean,
So-
even if we group them both together, like,
Honestly,
Yeah,
there aren't that
it's-
many Game Boy Color games at the end of the day. Like,
Yeah.
that work on Game Boy. But yeah, the Game Boy is a hell of a console. Like, I am very fond of the like design of the original Game Boys too. Like the brick, the Game Boy Pocket, the Game Boy Color. I like the way they look.
yeah. So I think, yeah. I mean, there's not much more to say about the Game Boy. That's an obvious
mean,
S tier
Took the
inclusion.
world by storm. Portable gaming has been huge forever, but yeah, amazing,
Yeah.
amazing console rather.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it also had the Sega Game Gear.
Yeah, the Sega Game Gear. So the Sega Game Gear gets a lot of points for being in the same class as the Master System, really. Like, if there was a Master System version of a game, then there was a Game Gear version of a game. It had Sonic, it had Sonic 2, compromised ports of those, but, you know, Sonic nevertheless. And also, like, the Game Gear was cool. It had a color screen. You could, I mean, it took like 6D batteries or whatever, and you were gonna like be ripped if you carried that thing around with you all the time. But it was like a console level experience that you could take on the go. Didn't really catch on as much, but a lot of cool stuff there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have more to say about it, Mike? Have you played one?
I haven't actually touched a Game Gear. I don't think in my life. I just know it exists.
Yeah,
It's-
they're interesting, right? Like you're not gonna sneak your Game Gear to school in your backpack. I'll tell you that. They'll see it. That Game
Yeah.
Gear bulge is gonna be there. But
Is that a Sega Game Gear in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?
yeah, exactly. But
Yeah, so I don't know if we want to rank that the Game Gear just because of the sort
yeah,
of
I
lack
haven't
of.
played it enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just don't know enough about it. I'm gonna leave it unranked, I think.
Yeah. It's up there
Okay.
with the Atari Lynx and things I don't know about, but I'm learning
Yeah.
about as I look at these lists.
Yeah, I know it's cool, but I don't know enough about it to rank it. I don't think.
So shall we move on then to the fifth generation,
Oh,
1993 to 2001?
This is the
Yeah.
good one.
My first generation, and as such, the one that's most seared into my brain.
So we're gonna
First-
start on N64, right?
No, I think we should start with the Atari Jaguar and just like put that as our inaugural F tier.
No. The Jaguar is not F tier. The Jaguar is the original console way to play Doom.
Was
Every
it? I thought it
other
was a
console
disaster.
Every other yeah, it was a financial disaster, but every other console port of Doom was derived from the Atari Jaguar version.
Oh, that is. I don't like that. I don't like that distinction.
Yeah, yeah, the Jaguar was cool. It was 90s cool, but it was cool. But I haven't played one, so I'm not comfortable ranking it.
Oh, it only
Yeah.
had 50 games though. Ooh.
Yeah.
So maybe we should move on to the Nintendo 64.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love this console.
Yeah, I mean, this console is what ushered in the 3D age of gaming, really. I mean,
Notably,
like,
one of Nintendo's worst performing consoles.
which is fascinating. Yeah, like that's mind blowing to me because it's like
Yeah.
the highest impact console in my
Yeah,
opinion.
it's really
period.
funny to me because the N64, like, I can think of a ton of games on it that are super good that I want to play. I
I mean,
cannot
yeah.
think of very many games on it that I don't want to play because there just weren't that many games on the thing.
Yeah, I mean, like we've got all time classics, right? Mario 64, Ocarina of Time. We've
Majora's
got
Mask,
Majora's Mask. We've got Smash Brothers. Like,
Kirby 64, Kirby Crystal Shards, rather.
yes. Oh, I loved Crystal Shards, dude. I love
Yeah.
that game. We've
Yeah,
got
we haven't even
Mario
talked about
Mario
Kirby this whole
Party.
time. Kirby's amazing.
Yeah. Mario
The thing
Party,
about the
man.
N64 though, you gotta. I mean, it didn't sell well. It did not sell very well, and that sucks.
And I will say that just in hindsight, right? Like back in the day, I thought it was fine, but in hindsight, that controller is an abomination.
Really, the controller doesn't bother me that much. The actual controls in a lot of the games feel kind of stiff.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But,
it
like-
is a weird controller.
But just, like I can excuse all of that just because of like the extremely strong
Yeah,
just
so
catalog of games and just the nostalgia factor, if I'm being real. Like,
Star Fox 64 was on
oh
it.
yeah,
Like
Star Fox 64.
that's incredible.
Yeah, there's-
I mean, so incredible they've just remade it a billion times because they can't make another Star
Right.
Fox. Yeah, so definitely loses some points for like volume of games, but like every game we've listed on it, like the only bad game I can think of for the N64 is like Superman 64.
I mean, it also had
Yeah, that
Doom
game.
64, which was
Doom 64 is really good.
really good.
Yeah,
And let's not forget Rare's output that
yeah,
generation.
GoldenEye,
Killer Instant Gold,
Banjo. I mean,
Banjo.
Banjo, Kazooie, and Tooie.
you've
Yeah.
got
007.
you got Donkey Kong 64 in there, which is controversial.
Dude, I love DK64. Like, I
yeah.
don't care what anyone says. Yeah.
Never played it, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, Ahmed. You've actually played this one, so where do you put it?
I mean, like you haven't. But no, this is an easy S tier. Like,
Yeah, I was.
how could it be anything else?
Because you hadn't played these.
Yeah. No, like
Yeah,
this.
it's an
this-
easy S tier. It's
Yeah.
I mean, this. I think like it as a percentage, this console has more 10 out of 10 games than any other console I can think of, just that I've played.
see, I don't know if I would place any of these games as 10 out of 10, but they're high. They're high ranking games.
Yeah. So
I just grade a little harsher than you.
yeah.
But
All right.
yeah, moving over to the Sega Saturn, I think.
Oh, PlayStation, man.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we can do PlayStation
That's
first.
the PlayStation. The PlayStation was that 90s console with the attitude.
Yeah, I mean,
Like-
the PlayStation. Okay, so first things first, PlayStation had Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Moving on.
Oh, yeah.
We're done here.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
no, like
It's
that's just one of many incredible games on that system.
Yeah,
like
Symphony of the Night, the second Metroidvania
oh
game.
yeah,
It had Final Fantasy VII.
Final Fantasy VII was
had
monumental, dude.
so much
Yeah.
quality.
No, I mean Crash Bandicoot, Spyro. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
what do you even say
and,
about?
mascots to rival Nintendo, right? We've got
Yeah,
Crash
and this is wild
Spyro.
because this was Sony jumping out of the gate with all these heavy hitters.
It also had the best fantasy western JRPG ever made,
What's that?
Wild Arms.
Wild Arms, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
I don't
gotta
even know
quote
the game.
Wild Arms. Yeah, no one knows the game. That's the thing.
I've heard of
There's
it.
a reason it died.
I've got 3 words for you two. Metal Gear Solid.
I mean, it's
That's-
S. Yeah, it's the PlayStation's S tier. There's no argument to be made. It's just incredible.
Yeah, and I do
Just
think
a
just
good console.
in
And also, I mean, it was the
particular,
first use of dual analogs. Like,
True, yeah, very
which
true.
is yeah, Sony came out swinging with the controller that they would use for the next 20 years.
Yeah, and it just bears mentioning, like this was the first step in a lifetime rivalry with Nintendo, right? Like
I don't
Sony-
even think that's fair. It's Sony and Nintendo are not rivals.
They
Well,
were
I mean,
at the
back then-
time.
back
but
then they
Yeah,
definitely-
yeah, there was a lot of bad blood because Sony was supposed to make the N64 originally.
So yeah, Sony had that plucky I think Sony also Nintendo at the time was for kids, and Sony was like, "This is the adults' console. Look how full of
yeah, this
attitude
is also
we
probably
are."
the first generation that they made games that well, no, I mean Mortal Kombat was around and stuff, but I think
Look at Crash Bandicoot. Look how plucky
games were more mature. Like
attitude
Metal
he
Gear
had.
Solid is a mature
Yeah.
game, like
Tomb
not just
Raider.
a violent game that younger kids probably shouldn't play. But Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy, those
Yeah.
are like games telling a mature story and stuff, and that kind of started here.
I agree, yes. So yeah, that one's an obvious choice there, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's S tier easily.
What about the what do we have here? Sega Saturn.
I mean, the Sega Saturn had Knights, and that's meaningful to me. I think the worst part about the Sega Saturn that makes it the hardest to talk about here is that it did not have like a core Sonic game. Like they went an entire console generation. It had Sonic games. Like I think it had 3D Blast, and I think it had Sonic R. But this was like the beginning of Sonic's dubious time.
Yeah, because I think for the Saturn Sega, they were trying their best to release a 3D Sonic, and it just never made the cutoff for the Saturn's launch.
Yeah, they just kept doing some weird stuff with it. And looking back at some of the demos and stuff, they like tried some cool stuff. But yeah, the Saturn really had to survive without Sonic, and it didn't really. It was a huge commercial failure. Especially like considering that they had just it was a 32-bit console, I think. Or was it 64-bit?
It couldn't
They
have
were
been
all
32-bit, right?
bits. They were all 32 bits. It was just like marketing ploys from Nintendo.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was technically a
Okay.
32-bit because like
they were
computers
all
didn't enter
32-bit.
64-bit for real until when I was in like middle school.
Yeah.
Like so yeah, so I'm pretty sure and they had just released the 32X or whatever for the Genesis, and like the Saturn came out like right after that, and like they released the Saturn early. The Saturn was mismanaged terribly, but you go online, you talk to people about the Saturn, it is remembered extremely fondly. I believe the Saturn was like the first place you could play MMOs on console.
I think it had a Fantasy Star, didn't it?
I think
Or
it
was
had
that-
a Fantasy. No, Fantasy Star Online was Dreamcast,
Let me see.
but I'm pretty sure the Saturn did have MMOs. I think it had
Dragon's
had-
Dream.
Yeah, I knew
it
that
was
it had a
1997.
network adapter because you could like get on the internet on a Saturn and stuff. I'm pretty sure, and it had a mouse and keyboard, which is awesome.
Yeah.
The Saturn's also neat because it kind of let Sega's other first party stuff shine a little bit. Like I think Virtua Fighter was really big on Saturn, but it really was like you didn't have a Saturn unless you were a huge Sega fan.
Yeah.
You had the PlayStation pretty much cannibalized all of the Saturn sales.
Yeah, I will say this is the generation where Sega really sort of fell behind, and
Yeah, there
Sony
was
and
really-
Nintendo were the market leaders. Really,
There was no recovering after this generation. However, like
they attempted to.
a lot of heart. I think this is probably going to be my most controversial tier placement on this list, but I think the Saturn just ekes out S tier for being just for the heart, like you got Virtua Fighter, you had all these weird, crazy attempts at a Sonic game, like Sonic R. Let's take a step back. Sonic R is not a good game, but like people talk about it a lot. Like I want to play it. Still.
Yeah, Sonic R gave us Charmy B, right?
Did it really? I thought no, he's from Knuckles Chaotix.
Oh, he's from Chaotix. Wasn't that released on the Saturn?
No, I thought it might have been. That might have been Saturn.
Yeah, I think that was Saturn.
Yeah. Okay. So the Saturn. Yeah, the Saturn gave us Charmy B, who is an iconic character. It also gave us Espio and Vector, I think. Or was Espio not until Sonic Heroes? I don't know. I know Vector was in Knuckles Chaotix. But yeah, the Saturn just, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't the console's fault that Sega was incompetent.
Knuckles Chaotix may not have been that one. When did Knuckles Chaotix launch?
So S tier.
Yeah, I'm putting it S tier, and I think that's going to be pretty controversial, but I'm going to stand by it. Nah, Knuckles Chaotix was 32X, but
yeah, it was 32X. God, Sega, you had one Sonic IP game and you released it for a Genesis expansion.
Yep.
All right,
So-
I think
I think it's time to move on to the 6th gen, which is where
6th gen, which I feel like a lot of people would argue that this is like the current apex of gaming as we know it.
yeah, it's definitely. I mean, the PlayStation 2 is a beast. Oh, did we? No, the Game Boy Advance is kind of 6th gen, so we'll put it in there.
Yeah, the game, at least according to this chart, it is classified under 6th
Yeah,
gen.
so like you have the Game Boy Advance and the PS2. That alone, the 6th gen is like wild.
Yeah, I think the 6th gen might be at the top for me, but let's just go through each of the heavy hitters one by one. Starting with Nintendo, as always.
Yeah.
Nintendo.
So the GameCube was another one that
GameCube.
really undersold, which is a
It
shame.
did, yes, which is a real shame because this might be my favorite console. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's between this and the
Um,
Switch probably for my favorite Nintendo console because like Super Mario Sunshine, people dunk on it. It controls a whole lot better than Super Mario 64, and you can't convince me otherwise.
I
know,
mean,
You
Super
missed the
Smash
long
Brothers Melee. Let's just throw that out
Smash
there.
Bros.
For
Melee.
me, like Melee, is the only esport I follow. Like, and I know that's a very minor, like that's not very popular, right? But like to me, Melee means a whole great deal, way more than just the game itself.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah, I mean Melee is incredible. You got Metroid
Yeah.
Prime and Prime 2. You actually got 2 Metroids on this console. That's crazy. Both developed by Retro. Both amazing games.
we saw some weird moves here too. Like I think we got like a Metal Gear Solid remake on GameCube,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Yep. Twin Snakes, I think, is what it was called.
Yes.
Yeah.
Resident
and,
Evil 4.
Yeah, they were
Resi
just
4.
Nintendo branched out a
Mhm.
little bit. Yeah, that chainsaw
Yeah.
controller for RE4. Also GameCube controller, like that thing's
Top
It's a
amazing.
tier.
work of art.
Best
Yeah.
controller ever released all time.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't think
extremely
I
good.
can argue with that. Yeah, I love that controller to death. They're still making it, man. Isn't that
Yeah,
crazy?
the fact that it's still a controller that you can buy, you can go to like a brick
Yeah.
and mortar store and buy a GameCube controller.
I mean, you can straight up just order a GameCube controller from Nintendo. Like they're still manufacturing them.
It's been 2 decades since this console launched, and the controller is still relevant.
Yeah. And of course, we've got, the Marios and the Zeldas. We mentioned Sunshine. We should mention Wind Waker
Wind
which
Waker
is,
and
I
Twilight
think-
Princess.
and Twilight Princess, right? I think Wind Waker is my favorite Zelda of all time. So that,
Twilight Princess, though, was like a shared child between.
yes, that's
Well, it
true.
was originally a GameCube game, but much like Breath of the Wild, it started knocking on the door of the next console's
Right.
release. But the Wii does not need Twilight Princess to help it in this conversation, so I'm going to give it to
Right.
the GameCube.
So yeah, so let's also, bears mentioning Mario Kart Double Dash.
Yeah, a lot of people say that's the best one. I
And-
don't agree with that, but it's a good game.
I will say this is the Nintendo console I played the most Mario Party on. I played Mario Party like a fiend on this thing with friends and family. And it was-
Also, I know we haven't talked about the Dreamcast yet, but this is where I first played Sonic the Hedgehog games, Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2. This was my first exposure to
Sonic.
Sonic.
Yeah, Sonic Adventure 2. Yep, this was my first.
And I'll tell you, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle alone puts the GameCube in the S tier for me. Like,
I mean, I really enjoyed that game. I don't know if I'd
Phantasy
enjoy it
Star
today.
Online.
I forgot that
And-
Sonic released on the GameCube.
Yep,
I
that was
will
the first
say-
time.
For me, also, I know you guys are gonna hate me for this, but Star Fox Adventures was absolutely choice and one
You're
of the
allowed
crown,
to believe that. You
one
are
of the
wrong.
crown jewels.
Imagine
of
if
this
it had come out
console.
on N64 like it was supposed to, though.
You're all forgetting about Billy Hatcher.
Oh my God, Billy Hatcher's a good
We
game.
are
That was like
all
the first.
forgetting about Billy Hatcher. Everyone.
That was
does,
like the
though.
first Sega game that was exclusive to a Nintendo home console, wasn't it?
What a wild time that game was.
Yeah, Billy Hatcher's a good game too. I remember I didn't have Billy Hatcher for a long time, but I had the GameCube demo disc that came with my console. And I played a lot of the Billy Hatcher demo. Because you know
I
how
think-
kids can play the same level over and over
Yeah.
again.
I think Billy Hatcher was my first introduction to just how weird Japan can be.
Yeah. And it's pretty tame as far as Japanese weirdness, but it's pretty weird.
Yeah, it's out there at times.
And I just wanted to bring up, aside from games, just in terms of the aesthetics of the console itself, it's such a cool box, It's just
Yeah.
a square.
It may have
And-
not sold well, but
Yeah. Yeah, I
But
mean,
yeah.
the lunchbox design, it had a handle. I knew people that had like the little GameCube screen thing, and they would just take their GameCube places with them. All you had to do was plug it into the wall to play it.
Yeah.
I never had
No.
one. I wanted one really bad.
I
Did
mean,
you know that they were? Oh my God, Luigi's Mansion was on this thing.
oh yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's so many great games now that we're just definitely going to miss a few huge ones.
Yeah, it's hard on the GameCube. There were so many like third-party GameCube games I wanted really bad, but this was a time when couldn't really afford games, being an elementary
A
schooler.
small
and all.
child. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the GameCube lands in that weird spot where it's not like retro enough for me to want to go collect it as a retro collector, but it also like I played it at the time and I had no money. I mean,
Yeah.
I had a lot of GameCube games. I had a lot of weird third parties. I had like a weird Harry Potter Quidditch game.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
I
Yeah.
remember this.
I stand by it being a pretty good game.
No, I enjoyed that game. I enjoyed the first couple Harry Potter games as well. Like Chamber of
Yeah.
Secrets was really good.
Is that the one that Bad Hagrid is from?
Yeah, PS2 Hagrid.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's PS1 Hagrid.
Oh, it's PS1 Hagrid. You're right. I thought it was No, PS2 wouldn't have rendered Hagrid that bad.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been quite that bad.
It
And
would have been that.
I will also say, just as a broader point, this generation is kind of where I draw the line, like at retro, like above this, like because we start getting into HD consoles. I don't really think of the PS3 or the Xbox 360 as retro yet, but I
Yeah,
do think
I'm-
of the consoles in this generation and back as retro.
It's hard to qualify because I think the only reason you don't think of those as retro is because you were like cognizant when you played them. Like you were old
Maybe,
enough
yeah.
to have good opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yeah, we've
Jesus
always we
Christ.
forgot about that. The one Sonic game everyone likes to talk about because it was just
So
it
good.
was. It existed.
Yeah,
I
so
will
the
still,
GameCube's S
I
tier.
will
I think
remind
we've-
you guys that I used to dream about this game. I
I
was
know.
obsessed with it.
Oh, I have a friend. Okay, so I have a friend who had a GameCube, but he bought a PS2 because he thought Shadow the Hedgehog would be better on PS2. Worth noting that the PS2 is widely considered the worst port of Shadow the Hedgehog.
That's the one I played though. How was it bad? Well, I mean, Shadow the Hedgehog was
It It was just buggier and ran a little worse than the GameCube.
Yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog was kind of a stinky game.
Yeah. Okay,
Console
but
power was kind of confusing during this generation. I want to talk about the Dreamcast next. So,
Yeah,
because
no,
the
no,
GameCube's
no,
S tier,
wait,
like
wait,
we agree on that,
let's-
right?
yeah. This is an S tier console for sure.
So
Okay.
the Dreamcast, I wish I'd had a Dreamcast so that I could talk about how I had a Dreamcast, because I think the Dreamcast is really cool. The Dreamcast came out early in this console generation, and it basically did everything that the Xbox would go on to do, but just not quite as well. Like, it only had one stick on the controller. It was Sega's first foray into like Sonic in 3D. But it had
And it
Sonic
was-
Adventure on it, and I mean that game's bad, but I love it. I love Sonic
Yeah,
Adventure.
Sonic Adventure holds a unique place in my heart as well.
Yeah. And it had Phantasy Star Online, and I'm gonna give these games to the Dreamcast, even though I played them on GameCube. Phantasy Star Online Episode 1 and 2. ate up so much of my childhood, and I didn't even have a LAN adapter for my GameCube. I was just playing these offline with my friends.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and like just grinding. I mean, I had the MMO bug early. This was like pre MapleStory. This was pre Mobinogi and stuff. And I was just like grinding away at this game by myself.
Jeez, dude.
And I played it a ton. And I had to buy a new memory card for this game because my memory card got corrupted when I started playing it, and I had to have my dad go buy me a new one. I
Young
wonder if I
Connor.
lost all my- Yeah, it was dark. It was a dark day. I wonder if I lost all my Chow when I did that. I don't know if I had this or Sonic Adventure 2 first.
Think about the
And-
Chow.
The Dreamcast, Sega's last gasp of breath,
Yeah, I mean,
in the
Sonic
console
Adventure 2
industry.
was the last good 3D Sonic for a very long time, or the last good Sonic for a very long time. And I will, you can come at me on the Discord, come at me in the comments. Sonic Adventure 2 is just a good game. There's no caveat there. I know we have recency bias, and all the recent Sonic games were bad, but Sonic Adventure 2 is a good game. It's not incredible. It has a lot of problems that Sega hadn't solved yet that everyone else had. Like the whole, like, all the levels are just floating in space or whatever. But it's a good game. The story's stupid. The voice acting's bad. Well, the voice acting's not bad. The timing on the voice acting is bad. But it just makes me happy to play it. It always
Plus,
makes me happy.
It gave us all the Obama and Shadow the Hedgehog memes, so that's worth something, right?
That's true. And, like, I don't know. Even the worst level in Sonic Adventure 2 makes me happy to play at first.
Yeah, I haven't played Sonic Adventure 2 in years and years and years, and the only memory I have of it is, my fond memories of playing it for the first time. So it definitely holds a high place in my mind. I'm very suspect of going back to it because I feel like if I do,
It'll hold up. I mean, City Escape,
Yeah.
all the Sonic levels hold up. The only
let's
levels
talk about
that
the
are
soundtrack for a minute.
oh my god, Pumpkin Hill.
Yeah, no,
That
I
song.
rocked out to that soundtrack.
Yeah, I have yeah, I have both City Escape and the Sonic's theme song. In this one, it wasn't done by Crush 40; it was done by Daniel Tidwell. And I think that the version of Sonic's theme in Sonic Adventure 2 is way better than the one in Sonic Adventure 1. And that was
Live
that was
and Learn. I mean, come on.
Oh my god, Live and Learn's incredible. Yeah, that one was Crush 40.
Oh, Crush 40.
All right, big question. Where are we ranking this thing?
This one's tough because it did doom Sega.
It literally ended Sega in the console space.
But the games are really good. The Saturn doomed Sega. I just don't think the Dreamcast was strong enough to pull them back out.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say, based on just how good the games were, and I'll say this: there's a gaming bar in Huntington that I mean, obviously I haven't been there in like 2 years, but I used to go there, and they had a Dreamcast hooked up for people to play Marvel vs. Capcom on.
Yeah.
Classic
was-
fighting game.
Yeah, classic fighting game. I'm putting it S tier for Sonic Adventure 2. No game can have me spend that long in the Chow Garden and not like elevate its console into godhood.
Can't argue with that logic.
And Connor spent decades in that Chow Garden.
Decades, yeah.
Yeah.
I still
Alright,
see it in
so-
my dreams.
Let's move on to the PS2. So this the
Oh, this is
PlayStation
the
2
console.
best-selling console of all time to this day still.
Yeah.
I think
And
the PS2 is really where I started going ham on gaming.
I have so many regrets now with the PS2 because my taste in games was still garbage at this point in my life. So I missed out on so many of the PS2 classics, and only recently, as in tail end of the PS3 generation, PS4 generation, and even PS5 generation, have I gone back to experience some of these classics.
I didn't get a PS2 until 2013.
Yeah, so you're kind of in the same situation, but
Yeah.
I mean, let's just go down the list, shall we? Like Jack and Daxter,
I
Naughty
was
Dog.
actually just
Ratchet
gonna
and
say
Clank,
I don't like Jack and Daxter.
Oh, I love Jack and Daxter. Ratchet and Clank. I mean, that's
Ratchet
where
Clank
that
is
that-
really fun. Yeah,
Persona
Ratchet Clank.
4, like,
Oh my
Persona
god, I
4 is
forgot that Persona 4 was
godlike.
PS2.
Yeah.
Is Persona 3 on PS2? I think so. I think it
maybe?
has to be because I don't think it's PS1.
Wait,
I mean-
I don't think Persona 4 was PlayStation 2, was it?
Yes, it was originally released on PlayStation 2, and then Golden was released on Vita.
Okay. Yeah,
Uh,
I got beef with the PS2, I think, because a lot of the games I really like on it were multiplats.
I mean,
like
okay, go ahead.
Destroy Humans is like the one that comes to mind. That's like my most played PS2 game.
Yeah, I feel like you just haven't played a lot of the exclusives, have you? Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
had
This
some
one
quality
definitely
Final
sits lower
Fantasies
in my
too.
mind. I will say Devil May Cry 3. You get a lot of points for having Devil May Cry 3. That said,
I mean-
you do lose a lot of points for having Devil May Cry 2.
I mean, Devil May Cry in general, right? Like,
Yeah, the
didn't-
first one was pretty good
yeah.
too. Yeah.
So,
The first
mean-
one was pretty good, but very experimental. The third one is when
but here's the
series
thing: like,
got
Devil May
good.
Cry was a PS2 exclusive at the time, right?
Yeah, it was later went multiplat with 4.
But yeah, I mean, just like Eco and Shadow of the Colossus, these are two games that are still held up to this day as all-time classics.
Oh
You know,
yeah, and like huge games as art games. Yeah.
yeah, Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, like those games are no longer exclusive now, but back then they were exclusive, and like this was Kojima at his absolute peak, I think.
Oh yeah.
Metal Gear 2 and 3. A slew of Ratchet and Clank games.
Yeah, you had more Ratchet and Clank games
Yeah.
than you could shake a stick at.
Ironically, I've only played the worst of the Ratchet and Clank games. I think
What,
the one that
Deadlocked?
was just arena stuff. Like it wasn't a full
Deadlock
game.
was
or-
actually kind of good.
I really liked it, but I would say it's probably the worst one. But I really liked it.
No, still,
ju-
Ratchet and Clank is Ratchet and Clank. It's hard to go wrong with the series.
It is.
Just-
Yeah.
Just going a bit farther, God of War, the beginning of one of Sony's most important franchises on this platform, God of War 1 and 2. 2 especially being extremely well, held up.
Was GTA 3 exclusive?
Yes, GTA 3. And that's probably the biggest one, honestly.
Yeah.
Grand
that game
Theft
was-
Auto 3 is what kicked off the open world genre, basically, like
Yeah.
Grand
San
Theft Auto
Andreas.
3 is monumental.
Of course,
Yeah.
now you can play it on everything. That game's on your phone. But yeah.
Right. But yeah, I mean, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, I'm sure that's a game that's in your wheelhouse, but I don't
I
know if
haven't
that was on
played
Xbox.
I only ever played 1 when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And now I've played 1 and 2 because they did the
Yeah,
the
Gran
remake.
Turismo too, like one of the golden standards of racing games.
Yeah.
Gran Turismo is huge, even though none of us are personally into racing games, but like that's a huge pillar
I
of the
dabble.
PlayStation 2 as well.
Yeah, that was my first
mean-
experience of racing games. That and Midnight Club was multi-plat, but
The fact this console has so many games that have, echoes in the industry even to this day,
Yeah,
biggest
I
one,
would I
Grand
think I
Theft
would
Auto
rate it a
3
little
comes to
lower, but
mind.
I think I'm going to defer to you guys for this one because I didn't really play it at the time.
And I'm right there with you. Like I played straight up garbage on this thing. Like I didn't really experience a lot of these games until much, much later. But just, looking back on it now, like its success is still unparalleled in terms of sales. And, with the extremely strong catalog of games, I'm gonna have to put this in S tier. Like I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah,
think I can
I'll
put it any lower.
allow it. Yeah.
Okay.
Original Xbox.
Yes, the Xbox original. So this is Microsoft's first gaming console.
So yeah, I think the game I'm about to talk about was also on PS2, but I don't remember. But this is where I first played Psychonauts,
Okay.
and that game is so good. I love Psychonauts so much. It's one of my favorite 3D platformers, not because the platforming is good, because it's not, but the writing
It's
is
not.
the writing is incredible in that game. Like you
I
just
mean-
really feel like you're in this world.
Again, 3 words here. Halo Combat Evolved.
Oh my
Morrowind.
god, and Halo 2. Halo 2 is way better than Halo 1. And it
Right.
was
But
also,
Xbox was-
I'm mentioning Halo 1 because it was the start, right?
yeah, it was the first one, yeah.
Yeah.
The Xbox is also unique in that it was the first time console audiences got exposed to the Outer Scrolls.
And online play.
Morrowind, right?
Yeah, Morrowind came to
launched
Xbox, yeah.
on Xbox.
As
a lo-
Oblivion
as
360.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I remember like just I never owned an Xbox original, but I remember going to friends' houses and seeing this thing, and it was just such a bold looking
Oh my
console,
god, the
right?
Duke.
The Duke.
Yeah, and like
God, that controller of all the controllers, the Duke was probably the worst controller ever conceived. Like, not everyone has hands the size of galaxies.
Yeah, kids straight up couldn't hold this thing. Yeah.
This thing was
I mean, this definitely was marketed
chunky.
as something aimed more towards an older crowd, right? Like it wasn't marketed towards kids like the GameCube.
Yeah, I mean,
Like-
like thinking about the games that I
And I
remember
think
playing on
it's
Xbox.
interesting
like,
because I think Sorry, I was just gonna say the PS2 I feel like was marketed both towards kids and adults because it had games like Grand Theft Auto and it also had games like Ratchet and Clank and Jack and
Yeah.
Daxter. Whereas I think the Xbox is a unique space because it was mostly just pointed
Yeah, it
towards
was mostly adults. Like, you
Yeah.
were playing Call of Duty on this thing. You were playing Halo. You were playing Destroy All Humans 2. I originally played on this.
You had
I think
Fable as well.
Yeah, Fable. I think Psychonauts was kind of an outlier because it was more childish. But the game I think of when I think original Xbox is it Mech Warrior, I think? It was FromSoft. What's the Armored Core?
Armored Core, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Those games were so good. I just remember playing so many. This was my first exposure to first person shooters.
Wasn't that the original Xbox also that game where they released a mech game that had a full-fledged cockpit as an accessory?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Like what it was like Steel Battalion or something?
Yeah, and a lot of sim games were pretty at home on Xbox. I remember playing Battlefront 2 on this thing, and I think that it was also multiplayer on PS2, but
It
I
was.
played it on
God,
I
yeah.
put it on PS2.
Battlefront 2 is
Battlefront
such a
2 was
good-
incredible.
That's such a good game. This
So
was like
much
my
better than
introduction to shooters.
the new Battlefront 2.
Yeah,
Yeah,
actually, I
Battlefront
think the
2
new
is a
Battlefront 2 got
classic.
better after patches.
It
but-
did get better. It's still nowhere near original, I think. The
Yeah, I
original
agree
was
with that.
iconic.
I mean, the
Today,
original was
people are still
basically like a
playing
Battlefield
Battlefront 2.
game before Battlefield. Like it had the
Yeah.
Battlefield was
tanks.
around at this time.
Was it?
Yeah, it was just wasn't on console. Battlefield didn't. First thing on console was a Battlefield 2 kind of soft port. It wasn't Battlefield 2, but it was like a single player campaign.
I know that.
But yeah, I think it was first for hold on.
Yeah, I mean, while you do that, I just
Modern
wanted to comment. Where Xbox really wins points
Yeah.
for me is that. Sorry, go ahead.
It launched on PlayStation 2 in 2005. So yeah,
Wow.
Battlefield 1942?
Yeah, 1942 is the
Was-
first one.
Yeah, it was way before Battlefront came out.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Xbox is so good. It also was like on Xbox Live, man.
Yeah, this was the beginnings of Xbox Live. And what I was going to say earlier is that it sort of brought the FPS more to the console, right? Like before, like FPS was really considered like a PC genre, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But with
brought it
Halo,
to console.
Halo
Yeah.
really sort of modernized it for console.
Battlefront 2 was after Battlefield 1942.
God, you had what was that other Star Wars game? Rogue Squadron? No,
Rogue
that was the-
Squadron, Republic
not Rogue
Commandos.
yeah, God, that's such a good game.
Oh, I need to play it.
It's on Steam.
Yeah, I
have it.
own it. I just
Yeah.
need to play it.
What a good game.
So where do we want to rank this one, boys?
Yes.
I mean,
S
It's-
says
dude,
Mike.
it's-
I don't think I'm going to disagree with that.
Mike, you said S?
Yeah, I said S.
Yeah, I mean, Halo alone. Halo 2, yeah, it's S tier.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the 7th generation of consoles, starting with the Nintendo Wii.
I don't even think we get a vote on this one. I think the world says that Nintendo Wii is
everyone
a
had a
S
Wii.
tier console.
Yeah.
Your grandma had a Wii. Her great grandma had a Wii. Like everybody owned a Wii.
I mean, the Wii could have only had Wii Sports, and it would still be like A tier probably.
Yeah.
And then like Super Mario Galaxy puts it well into S.
Like,
Yeah,
I think that's the
what-
first. The Wii was the first time that people that weren't even considered like core gamers bought a console.
Yeah, the Wii was everywhere. I remember like when it first came out, there was like a shortage for over a year, like kind of like
Yeah,
what we're seeing
people
now with the
People were literally killing themselves for Wii's.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't-
not kidding.
yeah.
There was a woman who drank enough water to die for a Wii.
she was like waiting for one or something.
No, there was a contest on a radio. It's like,
Oh,
how much
okay.
would you Wii for a Wii, and
God,
she
she was
drank
probably
like,
doing that for kids. That's really sad.
yeah, she drank like 5 gallons of water and I think passed
Yeah.
away.
My mom would have done that. I remember I was still a kid. So the Wii comes out. It's 2007. I may be a little old for it, but I'll admit it. I still believed in Santa Claus. And my mom really wanted Santa Claus to get me a Wii for Christmas. And my birthday is December 24th. And this is actually kind of salt in the wound. I don't know why they did this. They didn't have a Wii to get me for my birthday. So they got me a Wii remote.
Oh God.
Oh wow! So
And I was
Dude, I
sitting
would
there
have been
like,
so upset.
this does
I-
not bode well.
my Wii
Christmas
story is,
morning, my dad, I guess, it was like getting towards midnight, Christmas Eve. I'd gone to bed because I'm a kid. And my dad goes. My mom finally finds one online, and my dad goes out and buys me a Wii on Christmas Eve and puts it under the tree from Santa.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
my-
heartwarming story.
My sister actually bought a Wii with the money she got from like lecturing college kids on what cystic fibrosis is.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So that was, I think, the first console that anybody in my family or any of my siblings bought a console with their own money.
Yeah. God, the Wii's a good first console to
Yeah.
buy.
And I just want to comment here, like, this is Nintendo's innovation at its finest, right? Like, they took a concept previously completely unknown to mainstream gaming, like motion controls, and just handled it masterfully, I think. You know,
And
like,
everyone's
obviously
like,
the
we
core
need
gamers
motion
sort of
controls.
complained about the motion controls, but, like, look at what this paved the way to, right? Like, I would argue that VR would not be as good as it is today without the Nintendo Wii.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Nintendo walked so VR could run.
Yeah. So, and you know, just talking about the catalogs of games too. Obviously, Wii Sports is iconic. Mario Galaxy is a masterpiece. We've got Twilight Princess. We've got Skyward Sword. We've got wasn't there a Metroid game on the Wii as well?
Yeah, Metroid
Yeah,
Prime.
Metroid Prime 3.
Prime,
It's probably the
yeah.
worst Metroid Prime game, but it's really good.
Yeah.
Still.
And Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Like, I'll never
Oh my
forget
God.
the Subspace Emissary.
The best
campaign.
Metroid game came. Yeah, Subspace Emissary is amazing. But the best Metroid game came out on the Wii as well. What's it called?
Other M?
Metroid Other M.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, everybody I know who's a Metroid fan's like, we don't talk about that.
Yeah, so the
It's-
weird thing about the Wii is that looking back, like in retrospect, I see it as like this amazing thing. I hated the Wii.
At the time, yeah, like there was definitely a lot of disdain for it.
Because I just it came off to me as Nintendo like turning away from core gamers. Like I loved it when I first got it because I was a little kid and I loved Waggle controls. And then I kind of grew into middle school and I was too cool for the Wii.
Hmm.
And this is when I hopped over to the PS3.
The PS3.
We'll get to that.
Oh,
But yeah, you know, looking back, the Wii was amazing. Like Mario Galaxy is still amazing to play today. So is
Galaxy
Metroid
2
Prime.
as well.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, no, there's a ton of Wii games that are just the best. The Wii did have, like I docked the NES points for shovelware. I'm gonna have to do that for the Wii too. Because the Wii
Wii Music.
the Wii has some of the most, yeah, the Wii has first party shovelware. Like the Wii is some of the most egregious shovelware.
Yeah,
known to man.
Nintendo. It's kind of weird because like Nintendo went into an interesting direction with the Wii, but I feel like they were almost taking it too far.
Yeah.
You know,
The
like they had
Wii-
to scale back a bit.
the Wii was actually well, it wasn't the first time I got involved with like online gaming and the likes, but it was the first time I got a console online.
Yeah.
Parents
All
weren't
right,
paying
yeah,
for
I
Xbox
think
Live.
this one's an easy one, right?
Yeah, it's S tier. Yeah.
For the sheer gall of Nintendo alone, I'm gonna give it an S tier.
So while we're talking about Nintendo, can we go to Nintendo DS next? Oh, we skipped the
Yeah.
Game Boy Advance.
We
It's
did!
tier.
We gotta
It's
go back.
S-tier.
S tier. We don't even need to
S
talk about
tier.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right,
There
moving
are
on.
many long hours.
Nintendo DS though. I really like. Okay, so first of all, I didn't want a Nintendo DS when it first came out. My dad offered to buy me one, and I said I don't get it. Why would I want two screens? And I kept playing my Game Boy. I did not change my mind until I went over to my friend's house, and he had a Nintendo DS, and he had Super Mario 64 DS, and like. That's a console game. Like I had played that on my N64,
Yeah.
and the fact that that was available on a Nintendo DS, I like went home that day and I was like, Dad, I changed my mind. I think I want a Nintendo DS.
No, this thing was incredible, and you know, not to just talk about the catalog of amazing games, but I remember one thing very distinctly from like middle school:
Was it PictoChat on the bus?
PictoChat on the
Yo,
bus. Yes,
Always PictoChat.
that was such a thing that happened. Yes.
I remember we got in trouble for it because like it was anonymous and somebody was bullying another kid with
Yeah.
PictoChat on the bus, and we weren't allowed to do it anymore, but everybody was still doing it.
And not
Like-
only that, like Mario Kart together.
Oh my
Like,
God, DS download play.
Yes.
Only one person on the bus had to have Mario Kart, and,
And
you
then,
could all
like,
play it on the
12
field
people
trip.
played. Yeah, like it was incredible. It was so much fun.
And Super Mario 64 had a decent multiplayer too. I mean, it wasn't as good as Mario Kart, obviously, but I actually think Mario Kart DS is one of my favorite Mario Kart games, and I never even owned it.
Yeah, it doesn't stick
Got
out
the
as
job
too
done.
memorable to me, but
It got
I
the
remember
job done
enjoying
on
it.
the go. Like,
Yeah.
It was as good at least as Super Mario or as Mario
I mean,
Kart 64.
the reason I
probably.
remember it is because of the whole multiplayer, the genius multiplayer functionality. But yeah,
And it was so good. And I mean, these are hot takes, but I really like Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. Phantom Hourglass has its structural issues for sure, and the controls are weird as hell, but they're fun games. They're super fun. They're sequels to Wind Waker. I think a lot of people dislike these games looking back because we don't look at them on their original screens, and their graphics look extremely bad if you blow them up at all. But they didn't look bad on the DS. They looked fine. Maybe not good.
I mean,
Fine.
they looked fine. Those are probably my lowest two ranked Zeldas personally, but they were fine.
Yeah, they're definitely the worst Zelda games, but they're still extremely good.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, just
And
the whole
everybody had a
innovation with the
DS.
second touchscreen, and everyone had it, and
Also,
I feel like Pokemon was on fire on
yeah,
the DS
Gen
as
4
well.
Pokemon. So Diamond and Pearl have their issues. Platinum solved most of those issues, and Diamond and Pearl are like two of my favorite Pokemon games. My absolute favorite Pokemon games, and I would die on this hill that they're the best the franchise has ever had, were Soul Silver and Heart Gold.
I don't think I would disagree with that. Those are definitely two of the best ones.
Also, they have the shiny glitch in them that is extremely fun. If you can game the RNG to get the right trainer number at the beginning of the game, and like
Right, I remember that. Yes.
yeah, I've done that. I have a Soul Silver shiny bug copy, and yeah, I just have like an entire team of shiny Pokemon, and I like to like play it around my friends without telling them that that's what I did. People that don't know about the bug, and I'm like, another shiny? What? This is crazy.
Yeah.
Man, you were that guy.
No, okay. So even funnier, I wasn't this guy until like mid 2019.
Oh, so you were that guy after I knew you.
Yeah, me and my friend got pretty drunk one night, and we're like, hey, let's do this thing with our Pokemon games.
That's
It admittedly, mine was easier than hers was because my reaction time was a lot better when I was doing the RNG trick on mine. My reaction time weirdly got worse throughout the night. I can't explain why.
Yeah, it's weird when you consume vast quantities of alcoholic beverages, you start getting
Bad
little
video
loose.
games. But yeah, I did. We both managed to get one, and what? Those are just incredible games.
Yeah,
I'm
and I
really
think
excited for the Diamond and Pearl
more
remakes.
more so than the games, the DS is S tier for me just because of the awesome memories from associated with that handheld. Like, I love that. I love that little thing.
Yeah, it also, I think it was my first exposure to online gaming. I think Metroid Prime Hunters, which is not a very good Metroid game, but it had an online first-person shooter multiplayer, and I think it's the first one I ever played. And you get points for being first.
Yeah. So we're in
Yeah.
agreement. We're in agreement, right? S tier.
Oh yeah, easily. Yeah, the DS is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean,
No question.
Super Mario 64 DS alone puts it in S tier. I love that little game to death.
Okay. Let's move on to the PlayStation 3.
Oh,
Uncharted
man.
2 and 3 are on this console. It's
They had
I mean,
PlayStation Home.
PlayStation Home was a very interesting
Cool.
social
it was
experiment.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Little Big Planet.
I thought it was cool. Little Big Planet, like you said, Uncharted 2 and 3. Uncharted is, I'm in love with Uncharted. I love Uncharted more than most things. So
Yeah.
2 and 3 are, masterpieces.
Yeah.
Both 10 out of 10s in my mind. So
You also had
The Last
Ratchet
of Us
Clank
Part 1.
Future.
I know I dunked on The Last of Us, but the PS3 for sure gets a lot of points for having The Last
oh
of
yeah,
Us.
no, The
It's a
Last
good
of Us.
game.
So the PS3, I think I want to give credit where credit's due. I think, like I said before, this console really sort of molded Sony into what it is today, and that involves, relying on these narrative-heavy games, marrying the story into their gameplay, right? So
Yeah. Also, free
that's really
online
sort of what
multiplayer.
Sony's known for now, and I'm all for it, to be honest.
One of the biggest reasons I bought a PS3 over a 360 was the free online multiplayer.
Free multiplayer, yeah. Whereas its competitor was paid this generation. Where interestingly enough, like more people were on 360, but well, for the
At
longest
first,
time at least, yeah. There were some interesting multiplayer games on PS3 as well. I don't know if you guys heard of Warhawk.
No, I haven't.
Warhawk was a ton of fun. It was like a third-person shooter
Oh yeah.
multiplayer game near the beginning of the
Didn't it
generation.
also have its sequel called Starhawk?
Starhawk, yes.
I thought you were going to talk about Fat Princess, which I wish
That-
there would be a Fat
See,
Princess remake
You know
today.
what's interesting? I think PS3 also sees Sony at their most experimental. We got like
Yeah.
Fat Princess. Have you guys played Puppeteer?
No, what's
It's a
that?
very unique like platformer, but it's like in the style of like a Tim Burton puppet show type thing. It's a very interesting little game. And obviously like Naughty Dog, I think, elevated themselves in this generation to be at the cream of the crop, I think. And then we've also got, sequels to really successful PS2 titles like God of War 3, which I've told the story many times, but playing God of War 3 in front of my friends, they were watching a movie until I had to
Yeah.
tell them it was a game, which was just an incredible experience, I think. Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots, which is just Kojima at his absolute wildest.
Didn't it get Metal Gear Solid 5 as well?
Did it? No. No, it didn't. No,
I thought
did it?
MGS5
It
was
might have.
I thought it was cross-gen.
5 was definitely a PS4, Xbox One thing. I don't know if it got backported to 3 and 360. I don't think it did actually. But 4 was the MGS of the PS3, and it was a PS3 exclusive, and it was long, messy, and glorious. I love that game so much.
The Phantom Pain. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so it was on PS3. Yeah, MGS5 was on PS3.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, no,
It
they
was on
dragged
both.
this gen out.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
Phantom
also
Pain
the
was on both
longest.
gens, wasn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. Now that you guys are saying it, yeah.
Because I remember
But-
Battlefield 3 was on this, as well as Battlefield 4.
And this also saw the release of like Grand Theft Auto 5. I mean, this goes for 360 as well, but Grand Theft Auto 5 went on to become the biggest entertainment property of all time,
Yeah.
so that bears mentioning at least. Yeah, I mean, when I think of PS3, like obviously this is the generation where like third parties were becoming more and more prevalent, right? Like more third parties on everything other than Nintendo, obviously. But, I think this is really the generation where Sony cemented their first party and defined what they're going to be. And for
Yeah.
that, I got to give it an S tier. Oh, shout out to Journey as well. One of the first like indie games proper that I played, and still one of the ones that affects me most to this day. Like I love that game.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah, Journey. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it an S tier.
I can't deny it. It's S tier for sure.
All right.
Moving on to the 360.
Xbox
Or do we want to do
360?
PSP now while we're talking about Sony?
Oh yeah, let's go for it. Yeah. So PSP, Sony's first foray into the handheld space. trying
PSP
to
is a
compete.
really cool little console.
Compete with that DS. Didn't really do a good job there, but like it was definitely, I think, a hit in its own right. I think.
Monster Hunter though,
Yeah, Monster Hunter was huge on PSP. Like,
huge. And a
yeah.
lot of people had PSPs. I have it's a funny anecdote, but I'm pretty sure I didn't learn about the PSP. My mom was watching Ellen DeGeneres, and someone was on Ellen DeGeneres talking about the PSP. I can't remember if that was PSP or PS Vita that was how I learned about it, but I just remember that being really stupid. That's a weird way to learn about a console when you're a core gamer. Like,
yeah. No, I remember Gran Turismo was really big on PSP as well.
yeah,
And
and
again,
the PSP the PSP is almost better now than it was when it was out. It has this like insane
Emulation.
legacy. Yeah, because it's one of the most hacked consoles of all time, and it's a pretty good emulation machine. Like, it's got a good D-pad. It's all you need to play Game Boy Advance, and everything. So I'm willing to let it piggyback off those libraries as well a little bit. Like, you want it's small, and you want something small, portable to play your Pokemon on. You can't do much better than a PSP Go or something.
Yeah, and like I played a bunch of weird, like quirky exclusives like Daxter. Like they made a game about Daxter on PSP. I played it. It was
Really?
very interesting.
Was there a Ratchet and Clank on it?
I feel like there had to have been.
Size Matters or something, I think.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
Or was that Vita? I can't remember. I think it had to be PSP.
Yeah.
Anyway, the
I'm not
PSP
sure.
is a good console. I want to go back and play those Monster Hunters someday. It's just really hard. Monster Hunter is a series that is very difficult to go backwards in.
Yeah, and especially at the time, I know like in Japan, especially like PSP, like Monster Hunter on the Train was like a cultural phenomenon at the time.
Yeah,
Like,
I
it was
imagine that
definitely a
Monster
thing.
Hunter on the Train was like their equivalent to PictoChat on the bus,
Yeah.
or Mario Kart on the bus. Because everybody plays Monster Hunter over there. It's like their Call of Duty. And
Yeah.
having it portable was a good call.
And let's not forget the UMD.
Yeah, you
The
watch
humble
movies on this
UMD.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
The UMD is crazy.
Yeah, very, very quirky data format there for the PSP.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Cool,
mean-
though.
I mean, obviously, I don't think the PSP can live up to the DS, but I think there are so many little things that set it apart and make it sort of a cult classic that I'm gonna have to give this an S as well.
Yeah, there's just I agree, but my reasoning is like little stuff that Sony does that Nintendo doesn't really do so much. They started to later, but the PS3 UI and the PSP UI were really similar, and something about that just hit right for me. Like they really were trying to make it just a little PS3.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah, definite S tier.
let's move on to the final console here, the Xbox 360. So yeah, the Xbox 360 is a very special console for me because that's like my first real like foray into online gaming, and I think it is for a lot of us here, right? Like, or a lot of people in general.
The
Like
360
Xbox-
sits in a weird spot for me because I never owned one, but I played it a ton.
Yeah, I mean, Xbox Live was a juggernaut at the time, right? And you know, it's even crazier when you think that Sony was giving away online for free, but Xbox was just so popular and I guess more reliable. People really gravitated towards it. And plus, you know, the killer combination of Halo 3, Call of Duty 4, those games coming out like back to back like that really created this huge online community on the 360. Like I remember to this day going home from like middle school and playing Halo 3 with my friends, like custom games, like that was so much fun.
Yeah, I'd go
Yeah.
back and just play Killzone. Going back from high
I
school.
thought that was PS3.
Yeah, I played
Yeah.
on PS3.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I the 360, much like the NES, retroactively holds a really really special place in my heart for the Xbox Live Arcade. Like indie games didn't have like a clear path to market back then. And Xbox Live Arcade was like the first step to changing all that. I think Xbox Live Arcade came first, then Nintendo got a little bit involved, and Sony later, much later, got involved as well. But Microsoft really paved the way for like Spelunky HD. I think Aegis Wing was indie. Yeah, just a lot of really cool little games. What's that game? Braid. Braid was huge on Xbox Live Arcade.
Yeah, and you know, Fable 3 bears mentioning, Fable 2.
Yeah.
Gears of War became
Oh my God,
one of Microsoft's major pillars during this generation.
And Halo 3 is Halo at its best.
Oh
Like,
yeah, absolutely. I think I will go as far as to say the most fun I've had gaming period was playing Halo 3 online with friends. Like that was the best, like most fun I've had playing a video game.
I missed out
Really
on that. I
enjoyed
wasn't
that.
allowed to play rated M games at the time.
Well, you know, just based off of that experience alone, I want to give it the 360 and S tier.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I never owned one, but I have very fond memories of playing one. It got the last Destroy Humans game, Destroy Humans 3, I think was 360 exclusive.
Yeah, and just a quick aside, this was the first generation to do HD gaming, right?
Yeah.
And I like how at the beginning they really advertised that. Like they had like 1080p and stuff on the boxes, but in reality the PS3 and 360 like 720p was the max.
720p 30 FPS, yeah.
So,
But they made it look good, a lot of them, you know.
yeah, they did. No, I mean like
Uncharted 3 still
looks
looks good
fantastic.
today. Yeah.
Okay. Are we ready to move on to the 8th generation?
Yeah, this is the last generation we're going to do, right? We're not going to talk PS4 or PS5, Xbox Series X.
I mean, we could, but it's still, I mean, it's been like 6 months, right? Like, so
Yeah.
We got to
no.
talk Switch though.
there's not much. Yeah, I think Switch has been out long enough that we could.
We'll talk
Switch.
Switch.
Will be, yeah, Switch will be our one Gen 9, maybe.
Well, or we could just call Switch the. We got to talk 3DS too, though. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
let's just kick things off with the Wii U.
No.
Wii kind of sucks, right?
Can we all concede that this is like a B tier console?
Yeah, I think B is fair. It has a lot of really good
It's-
games.
It's held afloat by like 2 exclusives.
Yeah, and all of its exclusives are on Switch and better.
Counterpoint.
Not
Breath
yet.
of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild is a Nintendo
Switch,
Switch game, and you
Switch.
can't convince me otherwise.
Yeah, it had, I guess,
The
Wind Waker
tablet from the game was
HD.
clearly a Wii U tablet.
Yeah. Okay, so I played Breath of the Wild first on Wii U, right? And I don't do this very often, but I absolutely bought Breath of the Wild a second time to play the superior version on the Switch.
Yeah,
Did the DLC even come to the Wii U?
I think
Who knows,
might have.
dude?
Yeah,
I think
mean, Breath of the Wild is probably the best case to be made about the Wii U, but
So-
it's not.
Funny story. So when they first announced the Wii U, I was like, yes, this is what I was looking for. Nintendo, after being casual with the Wii, is finally returning back to their base.
It
was
looked like
this
a
is gonna be
return to the
awesome.
GameCube. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it felt
I was like, I got this Wii U. I think over the course of that entire generation, I had like 3 Wii U games.
Yeah.
Like one was Smash, one was Mario Kart, and then I think one was like some weird like me thing that I got.
So I remember my exact thought process when I got a Wii U. I was like, well, Smash Bros. Is out on it. I want that. It's absolutely going to have a Zelda game. It's absolutely going to
yeah.
have a Metroid game. I want those. And then that neither of those ended up being
Yeah.
the case. And I just ended up never playing the thing. It gathered dust on my shelf for however many years until I ended it's the only Nintendo console I don't own today. I sold it to my ex's sister.
Yeah, I still have my Wii U. Probably going to be worth a lot one day, but yeah, it's definitely my least played Nintendo console by far.
Yeah, it's like a B or a C tier. It had some good games, but like those games had like such critical flaws that ended up being fixed on the Switch. Like Mario 3D World was a good game, but it was so slow on the Wii U. And all they had to do was speed it up, and suddenly it's like a 10 out of 10 on the Switch.
Yeah,
So
But they did have like really cool like asymmetric multiplayer games with like
They
Wii
had, like,
controllers and the tablet.
they had like 2 of those, and they were both
Yeah.
included in Nintendo Land. Like
Nintendo Land, that's the game I'm thinking of. Yeah, that's
yeah,
the
that
other
was their
game I
counter
have.
to Wii Sports. And Nintendo Land was
Yeah.
kind of fun. Nintendo Land made me that was a launch title, and it gave me hope. But I think the fact that their foray into HD was a new Super Mario Bros. Game, that should have told us that this was not a good console. Like
Yeah, it really is curious, isn't it? Like
it didn't
You-
get a real 3D Mario. It didn't get a Zelda. I'm not going to count
So,
Breath of the Wild.
I feel like okay, let me make a conjecture here. I feel like the reason the Wii U sucked was because it was Nintendo being reactionary to the hardcore response to the Wii. I think that's what it was, right? Like they're like,
I
okay,
don't think that's why it sucked. I think the Wii U sucked because it had no third-party support. It was
That too,
so much
yeah.
weaker than its contemporaries.
I was just going to say like they created the Wii U as to sort of like jump into the HD train and sort of return back to the core gamer, even though it had like quirky things like the tablet and stuff. But like I feel like Nintendo, if they were left to their own devices, like uninfluenced by like the backlash, maybe they would have come up with a different console, right? And that's when we get to the Switch, right? Like the Switch was Nintendo firing on all creative cylinders again. I don't know.
Yeah,
Just a
counterpoint
thought.
though, had Nintendo not gone HD, they would have not found success. I think even casual people, if you handed them component cables in 2015, like they'd have been. Or what? When did 2012? When did the Wii U come out?
Ooh, that sounds right.
Hold on.
I think it was actually
Hold
2011.
on. Man, 10 years on, yeah, people would think maybe people would feel nostalgic for the Wii U, but I think in
don't.
20 years, no one's going to remember the Wii U.
Yeah, the Wii U is the second most forgettable Nintendo console. The
And it
only
was
other one is
2012.
the only other Nintendo console that I think is more forgettable than the Wii U is the Virtual Boy, which I am putting in the S tier. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about it.
I
but
think the Wii U is just so forgettable.
yeah, the Wii U is
because-
clearly a B or a C tier. It's just not a good console.
It really had nothing on it. Like,
Yeah, like,
it had a couple HD remakes.
Yeah, and it like got a couple like really bad ports. Like it did get
Like-
Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2, which were very good, but
Like, even the Sega Saturn got better games than the Wii U did.
yeah, and that's why the Wii U is B tier.
B tier
this is
for the
the-
Wii U.
This is
Mhm.
the console. No, we're throwing it down a W tier. This is our tier list. I can decide what letters we assign.
Okay.
Sure.
But it's just a shame. It had Smash, but that's literally
Yeah,
every Nintendo
it had Smash
console ever
4, which is
released.
the most forgettable Smash game in my opinion. It had the worst classic mode. It had
It had a DS.
I mean, it was a breath of fresh air after Brawl, but
The
like,
gameplay was better than Brawl, but Brawl was more ambitious because of the story mode, I think.
yeah, I definitely got bored with Smash 4 faster,
Yeah.
and I never bought the DLC.
All right. Yeah. I think we can move on. Wii U, B
B
tier.
tier.
Nintendo 3DS though.
Nintendo
Ooh.
3DS is amazing because it has the best version of Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
And the best
And
version of
Majora's Mask. Yeah.
And Super Mario 3D Land is really fun. And
I remember holding one of these things the first time. I just like couldn't believe that like there was glasses free 3D, and this was back when
know.
like 3D was like a craze, right? Like 3D movies were coming out. Like
it's still
people were
so
thinking
weird
like,
that it's the only glasses-free 3D on the market
yeah,
too.
maybe Nintendo
Yeah.
like, patented that technology or something, but
They
like
did. Yeah.
I think
3D
like 3D TVs were popular during this time, so like the fact that Nintendo nailed it, like it made it really sort of a cool novelty. Even though like
Yeah.
once I finally got it, I really didn't use the 3D
Never
effect
played
that much.
3D on
I
it, yeah.
think like 3D was wild because it was just everyone wanted it, and I never understood it. Like,
Yeah,
it
I
made
never
more
really liked
sense when
3D.
4K came through. It's like, oh, they had more graphic fidelity.
I never
but
liked 3D movies, but I
3D was
loved
just
the 3DS.
strange. Every game coming, every like AAA game coming out at the time had some 3D support integrated into it.
That's not true.
It felt like it. Like a lot of the
Well,
ones.
yeah,
that I-
like a lot of them at the beginning did, but some games on the 3DS actually don't support 3D. A lot of the Pokemon games don't.
oh,
because
I'm
the-
talking about like every game for like other consoles at the time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Assassin's Creed had 3D options.
Oh yeah, on the PS3. Yeah, Call of Duty
Everything had
Black Ops had 3D. It was really
3D
weird.
options.
It was so
Yeah, I
hard
don't-
to see anything on Black Ops in 3D. So my mom actually had a 3D TV back then. And I played Black Ops in 3D, and all I remember is playing zombies in 3D, and like the glasses were dark enough that I could not see anything. Like,
Yeah, no, the I don't know. The 3DS I think definitely gets points too for being completely backwards compatible, at least at first, to the DS. So you instantly had that amazing catalog of games, and then
oh my
like
god, yeah.
we got Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask on that thing.
Yeah, and 3D Land was good. New Super Mario Bros. 2 gets slept on a little bit. It's one of the better New Super Mario Bros. Games, but that doesn't really get you any points because I
Yeah.
hate that series.
It is a
Also
shame.
had a strong catalog of virtual console games.
Yeah, it did. Also, Monster Hunter 4U was my first Monster Hunter game, and probably it's still a lot of people consider it the strongest in the series. Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, I think it was. I know it was a U. God, I love that game.
So what am I
Yeah.
hearing here? Is this-
You're hearing S tier. It's the
S tier,
3DS.
Okay.
I mean, I think I want to say the 3DS sold even better than the DS. Like everybody had one of these things.
I kind of want to dispute that. I feel like the DS was more popular, but maybe this
Maybe.
was one of those cases
Also-
where the 3DS was out so long, maybe it caught up.
This is actually a hot take from me probably, but I think the 3DS had the superior version of Smash 4.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Smash 4 was that weird one that was on 3DS and Wii U.
Yeah, I think the art style was stronger on the 3DS. I liked the stages more, and I thought the classic mode was better, and I thought that the weird like Smash Tour, I think it was called, the weird multiplayer mode where like you ran around a map and collected collectibles. I think that was cooler than the Wii U equivalent.
Yeah, no, I don't think I ever actually owned Smash on 3DS, but I definitely played it before, like with friends and stuff. And yeah, I mean, it
Did it have
definitely.
download play?
I think it did.
Maybe, I think.
That'd be wild.
I don't
know.
remember.
Anyway,
But yeah,
amazing,
no,
amazing console. I still play my 3DS occasionally. I use it to play DS games a lot. I have it hacked, so I use it to play like emulators and stuff. It's an excellent Game Boy and Game Boy Advance emulator because it it has that Nintendo feel to it.
Yeah. It was the 3DS was the last stand of 3D.
Yeah,
'Cause,
for sure.
3D anything was just a 2010s fad.
I mean, I remember like it being like I think OK Go released a 3D music video exclusive to the 3DS, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. But okay,
stuff
goes
like
weird,
that.
and they always release weird stuff.
I remember any 3DS trailers and stuff they had to put on the eShop for the 3DS because like otherwise you didn't get the full experience. That was where you had
Yeah.
to watch the trailers. Also,
Right, yeah.
I fell out of love with Pokemon in the like I didn't play Black, White, or Black 2 and White 2. I didn't play those. And I kind of jumped back in
Sun and Moon?
on X and Y. And
Oh, okay.
X and Y hold like I like because it kind of got me back into Pokemon, and then Sun and Moon hold a special place in my heart just because they really did shake up the formula a lot, and I really liked it. I like Sun and Moon a whole lot.
And then you got Sword and Shield.
I mean, I honestly I don't get to talk about those. I never played them.
Well, that's on Switch, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the 3DS is easily S tier. Even like, I mean, I bought it on launch day, and I don't buy very many things on launch day. I didn't even
Yeah,
buy
and
a
they
Switch.
had that, like it didn't do well at launch, and that's when they introduced that ambassador program.
I
really
was an ambassador.
sort of backfilled a bunch of games if you were an early adopter, which is
Good
kind of
games
neat.
too. One of those games was the first time I played Link's Awakening. Was in
Oh
the
wow, yeah.
ambassador program.
Huh.
Alright.
So the Switch is actually considered part of Gen 8.
That it's all arbitrary. I don't think anyone.
I think we just do
ruled on
Switch
this.
last, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Okay,
So
let's
we're gonna
move on
to the Xbox One.
Sure. Yeah.
God,
I was gonna
I
say
think-
PS4, but
I kind of want to. I think PS4 is easier than Xbox One, so I kind of
Yeah.
want to do Xbox
So-
One first.
okay, sure.
Don
yeah.
Matrick. So at launch, this console
Your
is a
first
C.
words out of your mouth are Don Matrick.
Yeah.
Don
At launch, this
Matrick.
console is like a C or a D tier at best. However, over the course of the
reversal,
console's
though.
lifespan, it
Yeah.
constantly got better.
Yeah, at release this was a D or maybe even F tier console.
Yeah.
But like Phil Spencer just putting in the work to make this thing, acceptable.
The existence of Xbox Game Pass alone makes the Xbox One an S tier console.
Yeah, I don't want to dispute that. I was
Like
I was going to suggest like some exclusives, then I really couldn't think of any.
I
like-
don't think I have ever actually played an Xbox One. Like in my entire life, I don't think I've ever played one. However, I play with people on an Xbox One almost every single day. This crossplay became a
Like,
thing. And
it's
we just
weird.
look on Game Pass and we're like, hey, what games are on Game Pass? Because we'll be able to play them together. And
I feel like the start of the Xbox One was weird because there were a lot of Microsoft employees. Like one of them was on Twitter. It's like I don't get the drama between having an always-on console, which is he just kind of condescendingly referred to people like, consoles are always online. Let's go.
I mean, these
it's-
people
it's
really
really
are
like-
like West
That's
Coast
kinda
people are
touch.
really disconnected from the rest of the world. They genuinely don't understand that some people don't have internet.
Yeah,
like,
so
or
it-
that their
it's
internet is
so-
garbage.
It's amazing that like if you compare like 2013 Xbox One to 2020 Xbox One, they're like two completely different consoles.
absolutely different I mean,
Yeah.
especially with I mean, we're just gonna lump the Xbox One X in here, right? And that's like the Xbox One X is a very strong console. Like it did
Yeah.
native 4K and stuff. Yeah.
So Xbox, I think this generation in particular, Xbox was really lacking in the exclusives category, but they more than made up with it with the revolutionary Game Pass, and for that, I'm gonna give them an S tier.
Yeah, they got a really bad Halo release. At least
Yeah, Halo
What they
5 was
got.
bad.
Halo
but
5 was not good. Halo
Master
5
Chief
kind of
Collection was, shaky at first, but
Shaky.
definitely turned
It's
into
still
like.
yeah, I mean,
something
I played
really
it a lot.
cool.
I really like it. Yeah. Just I played it on PC,
And
which it was shaky.
personally, I didn't touch my Xbox One too much, but Master Chief Collection and also Rare Replay played that on.
Oh yeah, Rare
It was
Replay. Yeah,
fantastic.
I don't like Banjo Kazooie that much, but I'll give them points for Rare Replay.
All right. So moving on to the PlayStation 4.
PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
So I think
Good
this is Sony firing on all cylinders, to be perfectly honest. I think the PS4
Yeah.
was really took the gaming world by storm, and not just because of their excellent first-party output. I feel like Sony really made a lot of strategic third-party partnerships to the point where, like we said before, people really associate video games with PlayStation now because of this console, I think.
Yeah. PlayStation fired on all cylinders here and had just good exclusive after good exclusive.
Oh yeah, let's
It was
just
just
Yeah,
pull
I
out
mean,
the-
I'm just looking. I only have 4 games on my PS4, but those 4 games are Spider-Man, incredible;
yeah.
Uncharted 4, incredible; Bloodborne, incredible; and Persona 5, which is like in a
Incredible.
league its own.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, no, and those are all excellent exclusives. In addition to that, let's see, we've got Horizon Zero Dawn, one of my personal favorites, God of War 2018, which is one of my favorite
I still
games of
need to
all
play.
time at this point. We've
I
got
need to-
Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us Part 2, which-
Infamous. Like an
yeah,
infamous
Infamous
game.
Second Son,
The Final Fantasy VII remake.
Yeah,
yeah,
finally.
that was
yeah.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'm ready to knock PS4 points for, there are two problems it has. One, and this might be a hot take. I don't know how people feel about this. I don't like its controller that much. The DualSense is way better. The PS3 DualShock is way better, in my opinion.
That's a
Oh,
hot take.
Yeah, I disagree
I
with
know.
that.
The PS4
DualShock 4
controller.
was superior to DualShock 3 for me, but yeah, I agree. DualSense blows everything out of the
Yeah,
water.
I really
That's
don't care for the
expected.
DualShock 4. And my second hot take, or not, this isn't a hot take, but making you pay for online. They're just pocketing that money, you know? It makes me mad. I don't like it when Xbox does it. I don't like it when PlayStation does it.
Yeah,
I super
and-
don't like it when Nintendo does it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like PS3 was free, but like Sony saw Microsoft was getting like billions of dollars for free
just
every
free
year.
money, yeah.
So it was like,
So-
we'd be stupid not to do that. So they hopped on it too. So it is what it is at this point. It's just I don't really know if that's ever going to go away. But
Yeah.
I will say, PlayStation Plus and the idea of giving away the free games every month, really, I really like that idea. And because of that, my catalog of games has grown to like by hundreds, and it introduced me to games that I probably wouldn't have played before. So
Yeah.
really big fan of that too. So yeah, but I think the story of the PS4 has got to be the exclusives for me. Like
Yeah.
so many memorable exclusives. Like like when I think of that console, I think of hunting down robot dinosaurs as Aloy and Horizon, or
Yeah.
suffering all the brutalities of the world as Ellie in The Last of Us Part 2, or slaying gods with my son as Kratos in God of War, and like
Yeah, you just don't have that many S tier games without being an S tier console. It's just
Yeah. You
just
just
how it
have
is.
quality.
So yeah, S tier. You heard it here first.
Yep. Now I think we're gonna wrap it up with
Excuse you. We have to
Oh
talk
my God,
about
the Vita.
PS Vita.
how could I forget the Vita? Oh my god. The Vita. I mean, the Vita's an S tier in my opinion.
Vita
Like,
means
yeah.
life.
yeah, I love the Vita. I'm so sad that it got dunked on so hard
All
just
it got was visual novels, right?
it got
No,
a lot
it
of
had-
Japanese
it
games,
actually-
but it got
no,
a lot of
Sony
ports.
supported it for a little bit. It had Uncharted Golden Abyss. It had Killzone Mercenary. It
It
had
had Mortal Kombat 9.
And then people figured out, we could just put our visual novels on here.
It
Yeah,
had
to be
got
fair,
a
it
lot
had
of
a lot
indie
of-
ports.
Danganronpa 1 through 3, and a
Yeah.
bunch of other like visual novel style games. They were really popular on there.
Little Big Planet Vita's like
Little
the
Big
best
Planet
Little
Vita.
Big Planet.
Tearaway was a fantastic
Oh.
little game that leveraged the Vita's unique controls, like the back
Vita was
touchpad.
really cool. Like having the back touch screen, like that was cool. No games used it, but it was cool.
very very unique piece of tech that maybe was a little too unique for its own good.
Well, it was actually a
Unfortunately.
terrible idea because like that thing was super fragile. I've never dropped my Vita because I know it
Yeah,
wouldn't survive it.
it's a fragile thing, but first handheld to use an OLED screen, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, it's a good looking screen. I use it for a lot of emulation as well. Before I hacked my 3DS. It's a good console. S tier for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
I don't even
absolutely.
think that's a hot take. I don't think anybody dislikes the Vita anymore. People just didn't buy them.
Yeah,
Like,
it just didn't. I
yeah,
mean, like
it
when your
just didn't sell.
competition is the DS, like
yeah,
it's
the 3DS,
it's tough,
yeah.
so.
And like the Vita, remote play started.
Oh
on
yeah,
the Vita.
remote play was a huge innovation.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember I played a lot of Spyro through remote play on my Vita.
Yeah, I
it was-
remember before, like I used to stream like my PS4 to my Vita and just play my console that way. It was very neat.
Yeah, and if you hack your Vita, you can stream your PC to it, and it's pretty good for that too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Were you
Yes,
gonna
I
say
have an
something?
NVIDIA graphics card for that.
It's neat that the Vita it's like a piece of gaming history that people are gonna remember. It just didn't sell well. It was just a
Yeah.
circumstance.
Yeah,
At
it
the
just
time
well,
the Vita
okay,
came
so
out,
it didn't
mobile
just
games
not
were-
sell well. It didn't sell well because Sony got greedy. Like the proprietary memory card thing seriously
Yeah.
hurt the Vita.
It also suffered because it was at the time where smartphones were exploding.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I also, like it did get first party support for a while, but that dropped off pretty quickly.
mean, it
Much
was the
quicker
first-
than how Nintendo, like Nintendo supports their handhelds
Yeah.
throughout.
it was the first dual stick portable, wasn't it? Like,
Was it?
It's super weird
Yeah.
because I don't think we're gonna see handhelds like the DS or the PS Vita ever again.
No,
because now
of
they're
the
just gonna
Switch.
now they're just gonna throw things on mobile or make a hybrid console.
Yeah.
There's no need to
Yeah.
have a standalone handheld when you could
Be
just throw it
interesting
on
to
mobile.
see like if anyone aside from Nintendo tries to go for a hybrid console. I don't see them succeeding,
Yeah.
but
I think Microsoft are the only ones that would do it, and I don't think they would do a hybrid console. I think they would sell a phone accessory.
Yeah, they just put,
A
like,
first
phone
party
Yeah.
controller for your phone
or they throw
Alright.
like a new app store on Android
for
or
xCloud.
something.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's move on to the last console here we want to rank. The Nintendo Switch.
I mean, it's got Breath of the Wild. It's got Mario Odyssey. It has Smash
I mean,
Ultimate.
I think a lot of people would see this as a return to form for Nintendo, honestly.
Absolutely.
was.
Like, I
They
think,
were-
you know, if
yeah.
PS4 was Sony firing on all cylinders, Switch is Nintendo firing on all cylinders, to be
Yeah,
honest.
that's the E3 that Nintendo revealed Switch was just pure hype.
Dude,
Nintendo
I remember
was
that.
just
I remember that
excited.
E3, and I was one of the detractors. I was like,
Me
this thing
too.
is going to be garbage, and I
Yeah,
was
I
so
wasn't-
wrong.
I
Yeah.
didn't think there was
Yeah.
anything wrong with hardware. I was just not convinced Nintendo was capable of making good games anymore.
Coincidentally, I think one of the first podcasts I was on was actually we were talking about the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah. And
No,
I
the-
Breath of the Wild
yeah.
was what changed my mind. Like I saw how good Breath of the Wild was, and I was like, oh my god, Nintendo like can make good games again. Like
And not only good games, some of the most innovative games ever. You know, like
and the Nintendo like the power of the
And then-
Nintendo Switch is so much that it makes the Wii U look better in retrospect. Like all these Wii U games that got ported to Switch now, like they just make more sense on the Switch.
yeah, I mean, like, and it's interesting because, right, like, towards the tail end of the Wii U, Nintendo knew, like, they were like, yeah, this console sucks. We don't want to put games out there to just die. So, in addition to what was originally being planned for the Switch, a lot of games that were being developed for Wii U got pushed to the Switch. So the Switch just got this absolute, like, you know, monsoon of games,
yeah.
and it worked out really well for them.
And it has so many Wii U ports that nobody played, like Captain Toad, amazing.
Right, yeah.
Pikmin 3, pretty good. Pikmin 3 is actually one of the like 2 Wii U games I actually owned. Mario 3D World, you know, they take Mario 3D World, a game that was
Bowser's
okay.
Fury.
Yeah, they speed it up, make it way better. They add online multiplayer that works, make it way better. And then they add Bowser's Fury on top of that, like one of Mario's best outings ever. Like
I think, you know, we'd be remiss to not mention one of the crown jewels of the Nintendo Switch, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
yeah,
What
yeah.
an achievement in gaming.
It's the best Smash game in my opinion. I know there are people out there that are going to say it's Melee, but
No, I mean, like, I think gameplay wise, I prefer Melee, but I think Smash is the best Smash game just because of, like, look at what's in it. Like, it's a celebration of video game history unlike any other game that's existed before. Like, it's an amazing achievement.
yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
you
think.
got
Yeah,
so much in it.
the only argument against putting the Switch in S tier is that its online is garbage, and like it's Nintendo.
Its online is garbage, but, like, I feel like the games on it are so good. It kind
Yeah.
of. you know,
Yeah, the
mitigates
online is
that.
like an afterthought in a lot of these games too. Like Mario Maker, the online sucks, but if they had just not put it in, I wouldn't have complained. I don't think. Like
All right, so, yeah, Nintendo Switch. Easy
S
as.
tier, easy. So
So there you
looking
have
back, yeah, I think you know, I don't know if people are going to agree with all of our placements on this tier list. I think you know some of them could have been a little lower, maybe some a little higher.
Yeah,
Uh,
I feel like people are going to try to put the Wii U up in double S tier, but
I don't know. I don't know that people are going to agree with my placement of the Virtual Boy in S tier necessarily, but I think the Virtual
Did we
Boy was
even
actually
talk
really
about the
cool.
Virtual Boy?
no, we
I
don't need to.
I slid it in. Yeah.
Okay.
really don't need to talk about
So yeah,
the
there you
Virtual
have
Boy.
it. Every console ever in S tier except for the Wii U, which is B tier.
Yeah.
That's our definitive list.
Maybe we were a little harsh on the Wii U.
Nah,
Maybe.
I think we were pretty generous actually.
Come back in a decade when we're going to be talking about the 9th generation of consoles.
Yeah.
So I'm actually excited to talk about the games we've been playing this week.
Okay, go
I
for
almost
it.
forgot about that part.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to
keep it
I'm-
brief.
I'm gonna get it in quick because this is a long episode. But I've been playing Dragon Quest Builders 2, and friend of the show and long time ago he was on the show. Jordan, like he was always telling me I needed to check out Dragon Quest Builders, and I never did. Dragon Quest Builders 2 was put on Game Pass, and I gave it a very generous shot because this game starts slow, like really slow.
Yeah.
like agonizingly slow. Like I was ready to put it down so many times, but I actually got through it, and it is like a really good game. Like it's just really wholesome. It's got really fun building mechanics. The combat is passable. But it like actually rewards you for building like specific buildings for your villagers and stuff. Like some of them want specific stuff in their bedroom, and they don't tell you that necessarily. It's kind of a guessing game, but you can tell by their personality. And like you can build a restaurant by putting a dining room connected to a kitchen room, and like they'll actually work in the kitchen, and the people that aren't cooks will come eat in the dining room. And like you have to make a bathroom for them, and they'll be way happier if you make a bathroom, and you can actually extract fertilizer from the bathroom for your farms and stuff. Like there's just a lot going on, and it just has some smart stuff. Like there are missions you can do to get infinite of a building resource, so you don't have to worry about collecting it anymore, and you can just focus on building your cool castle or whatever that you want to build, which I think is really smart. Because the mission's not like, it's not hard, but it's not really easy either. So it's not a given. It's actually something you have to put effort into, which makes it feel like earned. And really, I just really like it. I think it a lot of Minecraft clones, quote unquote, fall into this trap where they put way too many block types in it. And Dragon Quest dances with that. But as far as I can tell so far, it has like the perfect number of blocks. Like there's enough that I feel like there's variety, but like it's pretty easy to pick out a palette that you want to work in. I don't know. Yeah. I really like it. Sorry I had to talk so fast. This is a long episode, but it's a very good video game.
Okay.
The multiplayer in it is garbage, but it's fun single player. So
yeah, I've heard really good things about Builders. So
yeah, it's in Game Pass. I recommend you check it out if you have time to slog through the terrible opening.
Okay. Yeah, I might have to check it out.
Mike, what about you?
So I don't think I've talked about VTOL VR yet, have I?
No, but I've seen you streaming it.
Okay. Oh God. I've never thought like I'm a flight simulator person, mostly combat flight simulators because I've played a lot of them. And VTOL VR kind of stands out in that it's all VR based, and I don't need a single HOTAS system at all, which is great.
That is really good.
It's all VR controls, and it's kind of difficult. The first bits are easy, like learning to fly the plane. It feels kind of natural if you've played any simulator before. And eventually you get to the point where you have to dodge missiles. Let me tell you how hard it is to dodge a missile. Like there's a lot of switches in the cockpits. They all do something. Sometimes I've forgotten to put my canopy down and lost the canopy, and I've just been exposed to the wind. They don't simulate that, thankfully. No, they don't simulate it.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, they do.
They do a lot of different skips to make it fun and not super realistic. Like starting the plane up is only like 5 steps instead of like 40.
Yeah.
Which is nice. But it's really cool. Like I expected to enjoy it, and I was pleasantly surprised at how much it made you feel like you're a pilot while also not making you feel like you're a pilot. Like everything works pretty well in tandem. You spend a lot of time staring at a radar screen waiting for someone to come in your missile range, but
as the pilot of VTOL does,
Yeah, as the pilot as you do. It skips a lot of the I'm engaging from miles away because I can't see you. So it's nice. You still have like these handy red things around targets, which otherwise you'd never see them.
Yeah.
It takes steps to make it less painful. And I like that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sweet. Okay, I guess I can round us off here. I have 2 things to report. One really quick.
We're out of time.
Yeah.
One really quick, Returnal. So I unlocked the secret ending. I've basically done everything I can in that game. I've gotten to the point where I can just run through that game easily. And I've just become a master of it.
How long did it take you to get the secret ending? Like you lost your secret ending, right? So how long did it take you to get it back?
I don't know what you mean by I lost it, but I
thought
beat
you
the game.
hadn't saved or something.
No. I beat the game, but you have to basically beat the game a couple more times to find some unique items to get the secret ending, and I basically did that last week.
Okay.
So yeah, no, it was great. I think I have something like 30 hours in the game so far, and my only complaint is just I wish there was more of it. I've basically mastered the 6 levels, and I just wish there was more. Other than that, fantastic game. Last week, I did neglect to mention something really cool about the DualSense. The way you aim in this game, you press down on L2, but the DualSense has programmable resistance, right? So you push down on L2 and it stops like halfway, right? And that's how you aim your weapon. If you fully hold down L2, it enters alt fire mode and you can use like special abilities. And you'd think that wouldn't be intuitive or wouldn't work, but it works really well. Like there's no chance of you accidentally holding alt fire and stuff. Like the resistivity in the trigger really it works well enough for you to make that distinction really easily, and I thought that was cool.
That's cool because the Steam controller tried to do that and it didn't really work for me.
Yeah.
I never really used that feature.
But yeah, Returnal, fantastic game. I hope it sells well. It doesn't really look like it is selling well, which really gets me worried, but I hope it does sell well because Housemarque is a fantastic developer. Okay, second game. Resident Evil Village. I've been playing Resident Evil Village.
I forgot about that.
So what's interesting, it seems like this sort of like May, June, April timeframe is turning into a really like gamer period for me. Like we got Returnal, Resident Evil, and there's Mass Effect coming this weekend. But yeah, Resident Evil Village, I'm really enjoying this game. I think I like it a lot more than Resident Evil 7. I think I like it a lot more because of the I think the setting, like the gothic horror in the village and like the old castles and like the shiny like reflective wood finishes in the castles and like the wet cobblestone and brick. Like that whole aesthetic really is pleasing to me, I think. And like this, village in the winter.
I know which part of the aesthetic was really pleasing to you, Ammon.
Oh,
What's that?
Have you not seen all this? All the people who are super horny for Lady
right, yeah, Lady Dimitri. Yeah.
Dimitrescu.
So yeah, no, like yeah, the aesthetic is really cool in the game, and I do want to say though that like I do think this game is less scary than Resident Evil 7 overall, and like more action-y. Like there's more set pieces, but I'm like totally okay with that for whatever reason, because I think the aesthetic of the game is so strong and it really just draws me in. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it. And that's what I've been playing. And that is this episode. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. Let us know what you where you rank your consoles and how our list compares to yours.
Yeah, let us know on the Discord.
And this has been Game Talk. Thank you guys for listening. You can follow us at Podcast Game Talk on Twitter. Please like, rate, and review us on any podcast service you use, and click the link in the description of this podcast to join our Discord and talk to us there. Thank you, Connor and Mike.
Yep. See you guys next week.
Yeah, see you guys next week.
Bye.